make sure that everything here is working correctly. So we can get on and play some games, hang out, that kind of thing. Now, let's see. I wish I had some more of these over in the Mediterranean, but oh well. But they have been incredibly useful here. Okay, my transport fleet. Philippines. Well, let's using capabilities there. Where is what's left of my fleets? Okay, they're moving up. They're moving. Okay, good to know. Thinking maybe, what is this? Entawak again. Where do we go for Saipan or something? I don't know if we can get to Saipan from here. Forces, looking for other invasion forces. No. Okay. Shipping units. I think these guys are going to fall. It's going to disrupt the Mediterranean situation. Here to disrupt Spain, Portugal, and anybody else out here who thinking about putting ships to sea. The world, what's going on? And Sir Toyjet, hello, how you doing, my friend? Knock the Japanese out. build up the armed forces enough. Well, I'm doing very good indeed. Why is in New York though? Wouldn't that be? Well, I don't know. Washington or something? Let's try to organize some of these guys up. Okay. Episode. What do you all think out there? To see the delays between the two. Okay. Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745, and we are continuing the American series. Now, I was really frustrated last time I started to play this. I made a rant video. Rant videos are good for clicks, you know. So I mean that did go into it. I mean I was genuinely upset, but you know, it was like, well, let's rant about this. Be good for views, kind of thing. And OMG made a really nice, long response to my rants. And I've yet to properly respond to him. I did say I was going to make a video, and other things have distracted me, including starting a new YouTube channel, which I've announced several times just because not everyone watches the video. It's on called Crisis Report, and it is on the various crises that are happening around the world and that type of thing. Hopefully I'll remember to put a link in the description if you are interested to hear my, I don't know, hot takes or analysis of what is happening in the world in which we live in really sort of international way. You know, primarily right now focusing on what's going on with Ukraine, the war there, but other areas. So just been busy, so I haven't made a response to that yet. I still intend to make a response. I don't know the release order between this and the response video, but I'm going to do that not live because I am right now live on the interwebs with only, I think, well, there's a few, it says there's 8 people watching, so one of them is me. So there's 7 others out there, and one of them being Toy Jet, I believe. So you know him. He's famous from playing on Sunday's War Thunder. But so we're gonna, you know, see about, you know, doing that sometime not live, doing that response video, but I don't know what we're releasing. Okay, so to give you a heads up, well, let's look at the world situation right now. Currently, we see the Soviets have isolated Finland and a bit of the northern territories up here. Germany is presumably supplying through this port and this unit to Leningrad. I don't know how long they'll be able to hold out. Italian unit division by the double X's, a Romanian division, a Slovak division, another Romania there. None of those can be terribly good. Even if they're in good shape, they can't be terribly good divisions. Light infantry division, Germany's we can see there. Another Italian division in German service, and then here's an Italian division in Italian service. There, Romanians again in Romanian service. We see some Italians and Hungarians, it looks like, there. More Slovaks there. Like there. No, that's, yes. No, the Slovaks are retreating, the Germans are counterattacking it. It's like, don't know what else is happening along that front. But for 44, that's, not that bad of a historical outcome. And for better or for worse, that is sort of how they test play balance here. Now, I do think this is distracting the Soviet Union in that they've pushed down into here because Italy pushed up to the border here with occupied Iran by the Soviets. The Soviets burst into here when Britain couldn't supply themselves. And so the Soviets have, flipped Iraq as their puppet and taken most of Syria. So we're liberating this territory over here for Britain, which will probably stop once they get to British territory. They're probably going to stop the Soviets. So that's probably all the further they're going to go. It does look like unless Britain, since they're actually in my faction, they don't have a ship traveling now with reinforcements. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to hold here. Now, they've spent a lot of time, or a lot of effort, maybe I should say, doing invasions around Spain that have ultimately failed, and that's cost them a lot. Probably most of the divisions have shattered. And we can hover over here and see, yeah, there's 48 or 46, headquarters here with 14 anti-aircraft units, 15 artillery pieces. So probably a bunch of those are HQs on various sites because I see 11 HQ defense units there. Yeah, I don't know. Because I was expecting to see more infantry stuff, so I don't know. Maybe those are just all event given, but because we can also see lots and lots of stacks over here. Quite honestly, like a lot of those are useless units. There's at least 10 of them there. There looks to be semi-motorized infantry division with infantry tanks and a light infantry. I mean, this is probably good enough to stop any German invasion of Britain getting very far indeed with the current situation. I think a lot of these, and sometimes we have seen what these are, and that they are, a lot of them are garrison units. So it doesn't look like Germany's getting ready to invade at any time soon. So that's good. But Britain is, not doing terribly well, especially if you take into this into account. They do have, that's just, okay, maybe they'll push out from here and connect up and supply through here. I don't know. But they have regained supply ability there. Salam if they have transports. So that they just, I guess there's some sort of supply situation here that Italy's been able to supply. I just don't understand it otherwise, what they've done for that. And we can see there, Britain had pushed further into Burma for a while, but it looks like, up into this area, I think it was. But it looks like they're mostly been pushed back by Japanese, Manchukuo, and Those are Manchukuo and others. Britain just, I think, because of rough terrain, have been able to hold out in some of these places here from limited Japanese attacks. Japan has sort of expanded down here. Hey, Arno, good to have you here. And hello, Don Ramirez. Are you invading England? No, no, I'm playing as America. So, oh, and if you're talking about this, this is, if you're not familiar with this, this is an event is designed primarily for the AI that, and we have 35 bomber, or yeah, big bombers over here, air wings. Maybe we should rest a few of these. The AI seems to be incapable of. Ooh, there's a lot there. Okay, very much a lot there. And those are escorted a lot there. Wow. Okay. Let's. And there's double the number of units I could possibly. That's why these guys aren't getting repaired. So you rebase to there. The AI will not. America will not send bombers to Britain to bomb Germany. So this was developed as a practical response. Now, in reality, of course, there's more down in here, but as this is the fens up here, I don't know that that's really a good place to put air bases there. But it's around here that it almost does sort of America sort of takes over. The Britons are still running the towns and villages and the farms that haven't been taken over by Americans to build, whether it's army bases or air bases and maybe even a few almost naval type installation. So instead of trying to somehow put polka dots around, they just give two ports here, and this is just sort of little America here, so that the AI will build and bomb Germany. So that is what this is, and it's a really smart. Like, yeah, I'm glad you're getting it, and it's a really smart way of doing all of this. So I'm quite pleased with it. With a certain levels of inventiveness, I do think this is good here. Okay, now let's look at our factories here. It appears that there are no AAs here. Here. But what we're going to do is, and I've been doing it sort of British style, even though I see that some of these now have escorts, which is nice, but let's do night bombing here. Okay, that's too deep. I guess our fighters have not make it here. They can get to there. Okay, we're going to do strategic bombing, but just at night. Yeah, aggressive is fine. I know the bombers can travel deeper, but let's see. I'm looking for places without anti-aircraft. Let's bomb. Let's bomb Nijmegen. What have the Dutch ever done for America? I don't know. Okay, now here's more tactical bombers. Attack. Night here. Oh, sorry to hear about your sinuses. Boy, Jet, not a good thing, I'm sure. Okay. Facing, they're facing, facing. They're air intercepting, they're facing. No orders. Okay, they're not escorted. They're a fairly small outfit, but let's see if we can do. Push into here. Strategic bombing night. Use the night as a cover. Here again. Don't know how much. Bomb down into here. Yes, strategic night. You know, these are ground attack, and that's what I was sort of checking, just because of the fighters. I did click the wrong one. Okay. You want to shift it to strategic. Oh, no. Strategic, but night only. We're doing night bombing. Right. And here, yeah, this was Middleburg. Well, here. Strategic puzzling. Wrong clicks. There we go. Well, cool. Had some Burger Kings. Sounds good. Okay, so that's a bit of a bombing campaign for us. Now we are shifting in some more, significantly more ground forces here to try to push on the enemy. Here we are moving up some fleet assets. Now, I cheated in a bunch of fuel. If you didn't catch my rant video and what was going on, and I've overdone it, I'm sure, but this until January 45, all of these ICs are going to be busy building these petroleum factories. Now, I should have been building these earlier. You know, it's just my inexperience with this mod in the USA, and one of hey, this isn't new. This has been going on since version 10 of the game. Well, I haven't really played much of the game, you know, before this, because it takes me a long time to play Black Eyes, you know, Hearts of Iron 3 Black Eyes. So you did something 2 years ago. Well, fine. I'm just now getting done with the game that I started just before you changed everything. So it's new to me, even though it may not be new to you. Play slowly. I'm going to keep pushing here in Egypt. Nice. Radios in advance. Nice. America is the best on the radios and during World War II. These guys should come to here. It makes me cautious for any invasion of Spain or the continent just yet. We could probably do better than Britain with it, but I'm not absolutely sure of that. You this way. Guess you can have metal for a tiny bit of money. Hardened airstrip, that's a one and done, I know. Battle of Alexandria is done. Yes, you can have crude oil. Crude oil is not my problem. It is fuel is my problem. Okay, so what do we got here with these guys? Scattered out over here some time ago. Is there any? Okay, it does still have a few forces left here. Up a bit. And um, let's unhook you from that and add you. Placed in command and can attack now. And I think you're going to attack this garrison force. So that will hit these, what's left of these forces here in the rear, which will probably, I don't know if it'll stop them sending any forces in this direction, but it'll at least make them consider what they're doing a little more now. No, I did not bring a bunch of headquarters units over here. Maybe I should have. Okay, I'm not going to be moving much further east, so Third Army come this way. What are my transports like? Okay, these are landing craft. Good. Just looking here to see our current strengths. Okay, you naval strike this area. You also naval strike this area. You're not particularly good at it, but you can still do it. You got a big area here. Nope, you air intercept. If they come after our bombers, they're already naval striking. They did send these guys here, and it looks like they got a bit of a scrape on the way here. Let's do some air intercept. This region here. Because I am thinking about going to Cagliari here. I think that would be a good thing to do. Now let's look at our supply mode here. No, that isn't doing it. Naval mode. Okay. Oh, we're not sending in any shipping into here. I guess that's. Well, I know I have a few ships here running interference, so let's create a convoy. Like convoy. No. Okay, we're going to come out of Washington, D.C. because there is no port there. 22 Tunis, I guess. How does Tunis look as a port? Okay, it is big. That should be able to. Oh, we can't because they control one side of the straits with Gibraltar. That's why we're not doing. Okay. Oh boy, that's okay. So that's why these exist, but they're not bringing in supply. So we're going to cancel the convoys. They're not really picking up much, but yeah, get them canceled. Now we can reopen them up once we get the Suez and bring in supplies to this side here. So I'm canceling my idea of coming in here because I can't supply it. I can supply here. The supplies can transfer all along, but they can't do more than that at this moment. Ouch. Stupid Brits. And I don't mean that in real life, I mean the AI here. Okay, you immediately start pushing, don't give them any pause to reorganize. This way. Again, thank you. Thank you for the super sticker. Hands doing a high five. We'll high five back to you, or maybe bro fist. I don't know which is more appropriate, but thank you, Don Ramirez, for the very generous super sticker. I do appreciate it. That is actually the first super sticker I've gotten. Wow, great, cool. Thank you for the support. I really do appreciate it. And while we're at it, let me also thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, Toyjet, and Gary for support over on Patreon. But hey, everybody else watching, whether live on YouTube or and Twitch or watching later on YouTube, what I really ask all of you to do is just, smash the like button and post a comment. That's all. That's all I really sort of ask of you, but I do appreciate anybody who wants to go further and support. I do take this as a mission of education and not just entertainment for people. But thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Wow, that's made my day. Okay, sloped armor advance. Now, what's the date on that? Okay, 43. Well, we can continue that. I am contemplating my next Toy 3 series. Sort of been disappointed. I don't. But, folks, I don't understand things at times in this world, so, I'm sorry if I'm not doing the best that I could or should be doing. People give me a lot of really good suggestions of, hey, gamer, you should play this or that game. And they genuinely think it would be a popular game, and they genuinely want to watch me play it, which is really cool. But what also happens is YouTube doesn't necessarily show my videos to people who have, generally speaking, showed an interest in people that play the game. So I don't always know why, whether it's me or YouTube or some other reason, and this is sort of getting to the point here, has been the poor viewing numbers for Hearts of Iron 4 videos this last week. Um, and I just don't know whether it's my thumbnails, the title, people are just bored with the game, or there's just too many other people that are more interesting than me or better. I don't know, that are playing it or just more interested in interesting to watch the stream of it, or just what it is. You know, or is it just because so many of you have been watching previous, because we have been last few weeks doing Boy 4, and I'll get to Plastic Gangsters comment in just a second here. I don't know whether it's just even from my subscribers, because I hadn't been playing Hoi 4 for a long time. They've been watching other Hoi 4 content, and they don't even know that I've been back playing Hoi 4, so they haven't, been given really the opportunity to watch it. And I get that not everybody wants to watch everything, and that's cool. Then I specifically also try to bring on at least a few episodes of new and different games to sort of expose you all to what is out there that you might want to play. So yeah, I don't expect everybody to watch everything, but so I don't even know if the people, like I say, that might want to watch Hoi 4 even know that I was playing it, and the people who particularly want to watch me play Hoi 3 are disappointed because, hey, they want more Hoi 3. I get that too. So I don't know why or what the reason for the Hoi 4, especially last week, has been doing so god awfully poor on viewership numbers. So I'm not sure. What is the plastic? So so I definitely want to. There's no point in me playing a game and nobody watching it, however much fun. Because people say, "Oh, well, you should play what you really want to." Yeah, well, all of this I, to one degree or another, want to. But there's no point in playing something if nobody's going to watch it. Just like the YouTube live feed, though, I'm watching on Twitch, cool, but can't see how to drop a comment except for a live one. Okay, well, on YouTube, you can only drop a live comment during the live stream, but once it becomes a VOD, a video on demand afterwards, you can then do a normal comment on the YouTube channel. So you can do that later. Yeah, I can get to only after the stream. Most interesting wargaming stream online. Well, thank you. I don't know. I would say Slithering TV is probably more interesting. There's a bunch of us doing different things because we do more than just watch you play. Yeah. Oh, and yes, Plastic Gangster, and I do like the interaction here that you don't get when I'm just playing. But I also want, just playing on my own. But I also get into good rants and whatnot on my own. So let's move. We've got enough supply. We're going to move supply down. Oh, lock that. Move it. Yeah, come on. Move it. A little bit of needed, and we're continuing to lend lease there. So we're getting, yeah, okay, good. And I totally get that some people are only really interested in watching particular games, and that's cool. But I also get that there are people like Plastic Gangster that likes the Slitherine. You only get down to Slitherine when you're on. Well, mostly anyways. Yeah, everybody there has a different style of presentation, and that is part of what Slitherine wants is, if somebody doesn't like my commentary but just wants to see gameplay and learn how to do the gameplay better, well, they can, check somebody else out when they're on, and so it's not just me. And a sort of comedy train of thought, if you will, or however you want to say it. Hexaboo does a great job at it. And Richard of York does a great hype job for whatever he's playing. Cars. I'll continue that right now because we're okay. And I did not watch much of it, just a few minutes starting, but Richard did do a Battle of Varna. I think these guys are mostly going to just shatter themselves on me. Replay or whatever in the war games. So I hope that was genuinely interesting. And you guys crossed the River Jordan. You guys have made it across here and are pushing. Good. You guys are pushing there, so this way. The Italians are being pushed from two fronts. What? Okay, we can report that Casablanca has been under attack and lost one transport and escort. Okay, well, we do have some destroyers. So long as we're responding, most games shut down anything that is not directly related as soon as it becomes interesting. Like they think it's a distraction. Yeah, and I've definitely been criticized, and not just as in a, oh, you guys have come out here and can you get through to here? No, okay. All right, you guys rebase to here. As that I should do a better job, and both this, you know, friends who like, people who like my commentaries, as well as from people who don't particularly like my commentaries, that I should do a making sure that I'm sort of trying to do what I'm doing here now, in that keep playing while talking instead of stopping. But sometimes just my stream of thought, stream of consciousness, I need the to stop and pause to be able to do it effectively. And trust me, guys, I walk a very fine line. Not from really anything that Slytherin has ever said to me directly, but you know, just how shall we say it? Because you said interesting when it becomes interesting, whether it's a distraction or controversy in that someone's sharing an opinion, and so you're going to alienate somebody. Whenever you share an opinion, hey, I like chocolate ice cream. Somebody goes, I don't like chocolate. I like vanilla. You're starting to alienate somebody, and so, and Slytherin, the people that sort of manage us streamers in the past, very much has wanted me to approved and wanted me to talk about the history, but I got to walk a very fine line when anything sort of becomes political, even sort of old time political. If you will, and what I say there, and opinions on things. So, oh, we got time on target. Great. This is something the U.S. could do at the time. I don't know if the British could do it during World War II. I think with equipment that they have now, Ukraine can do it. Most NATO can do it now, and I think the Russians can do it if they're using their good equipment and well-trained units. And here's the whole idea of time on target. And I bring this up, and a few people, maybe Plastic Gangsters, whatever, knows what time on target. And maybe I'm So I try to gauge the audience here and learn who you are as to how much detail I should go onto it. Okay, we can look at something like, and I just watched with Eric and Toyjet and Niagara and a few others yesterday. I sort of checked out, quite honestly, the last, I don't know, quarter or third of the movie, but the modern version of All's Quiet on the Western Front, which Eric really loved, called it a 10 out of 10. I would say it's a well crafted movie, and the music and whatnot is well crafted. But I just didn't like the story of it. And it's not just, and I wish they would have just changed the goddamn title. Because when they remake something, because I've seen the other two versions of All's Quiet on the Western Front, the original 1932 version, I think it is, and then the one from the 70s color one. It was a made for TV movie, so it wasn't quite as big budget as this current one, so much, although I know it's made for streaming. Those Both of those ones tell the same story, and I have not read the book, but I think they're much closer to the book. And they tell a story of a group of young men going into the war, and it's more coherently told than what you see in this version. I just wish they would have called it something else. Then I wouldn't be looking to see, is it, because the 70s, they used the guy, forget his name, but who played John Boy on the Waltons, the show that because when I was a kid, we had the TV, and what my parents, I'm talking young here, very young, what your parents are going to watch, well, that's what you watch because it's the TV. It's not like we had our own TVs back then. So, yeah. So the Waltons, it was all right. It wasn't my favorite by any means, but it was the only thing on because you don't control the dial on the TV as to what gets put on. It's all right. So I grew up watching him, and he plays the sort of lead character that I forget the names, but that Lou Ayres plays in the original, which made Lou Ayres a star. Original All's Quiet on the Western Front. Those two are very, very similar story. And so I'm understanding, and maybe wrong because I have not read the book, but that it's more based on the book. And the sort of anti-war theme that is very much kept in the current one, and I did see Plastic Gangster. Richard Thomas, that's right. That sounds right. Plastic Gangster. So it was, like I say, a very well crafted. The music, maybe it's not good music to soundtrack to listen to, but as a music set to the motion picture, and when it became dramatic, it was very well crafted. But I just didn't like it, and I checked out. And we were watch party, and I just sort of turned the audio off and minimized the screen. I didn't want to interrupt anybody else's enjoyment of it. It was just another long, agonizing death of another cast member dying slowly and talking about things and whatnot. And yes, war is terrible, and so it was just, I didn't need another one. And so I just checked out of it. Then it was just overdone for me. Just didn't need that. So, yeah, let's see what he's saying. But it had been funny seeing 26 live streams playing Hoi 3, one sort or another on Twitch. So if people want to focus on gameplay, they're not short of that. Yeah, what you do is pretty much unique. I try to be. Oh, the one on Netflix. Yes. Hey, Keenan Butler, how you doing? Do you have any stability tips for running? I will talk about that in just a moment. Hey, Jetin, how you doing? Ernest Borgnine was the lead, and yes, absolutely. I forgot about that, but you're absolutely right. So what we did is to sort of prepare for the Netflix coming. A few weeks ago, we rewatched, and it had been 10 to 20 years since I had last seen the original movie. We rewatched the original movie, so we had both fresh in our minds. And thank you, Arna. I've seen the first two. I ain't seen the new one yet. Well, like I say, Eric gave it a 10 out of 10. Now, he's young. Um, and I say that not as a criticism, but he hasn't seen a lot of movies. Now, like, he did see the original. And one of the reviewers that I was seeing talking about this new Netflix, you could tell he was comparing the original All's Quiet on the Western Front with the new All's Quiet on the Western Front, but you could tell he hadn't watched the original because his description. It's like I remember years ago, somebody was reviewing, wrote a review of a rock performance of some band that he went to and whatever, supposedly. And he talked about the drum solo. Well, there was no drum solo in that performance. So, just talked about how, I don't know the words, but how the, the sort of making light of the combat and whatnot and the effects of combat on people in the original. But if you watch the original and when he kills the Frenchman in the shell hole and whatever, it's as dramatic. I mean, it's not quite as realistic, partially just because it's in black and white, but they do a really good job portraying the real battle scenes if you've actually sat down and truly watched. And so either he just fast forward through the original, or he watched a few minutes of it and then wrote his review praising the new version and saying it was much better. But so take it for, but when I say somebody's young, is like Eric hasn't watched nearly the amount of movies that I have. So and again, I'm picking on Eric. I don't know if he's around right now, but he shows up often here. He's a good friend. He was telling me about how great some book was. I go, yeah, but how can you judge? Or some words to these effect. What? It's really great. Yeah, this is literally like the third book in your lifetime you've read. So how can you know that this is a great book? Well, I enjoyed it. Well, yes, partly because of the subject matter. And he's 20-something, and now this is literally the third book in his lifetime he's read. So, to me, I would disregard anything he says on a book review because he's read too few of the books as a comparison. Now, that doesn't mean he disliked it, and it doesn't mean he's lying. It's just he loved the book, yes, but he's not read enough books to know what a good book may or may not be. I don't know. Okay, I like the first one best. Yeah, the first one is the best. I have seen Saving Private Ryan. Very good, very dramatic. I probably should see it again sometime. I saw it around because it was also released around a similar time of The Band of Brothers. I liked The Band of Brothers a lot better, but Saving Private Ryan was very good. By the way, I saw your short. This is how I caught. Well, very good. Keenan Butler. That's sort of and this is sort of, I was talking about earlier, sort of lamenting, is I'm not sure how many people, because last week my views were down really low. I'm not sure how many people are not interested in it, or is YouTube not doing a good job of saying, hey, this is happening to people. But that's why I've been making the shorts to push people here if they want. Yeah, Eric is. Yeah, Arno. I really like Eric. I'm just using him as an example, at which I think he's tough enough to take it if there's a slight criticism. The first one is Made Before World. Yeah, so they didn't know what was coming. Okay. The author. Because I looked up some of the details and getting ready for. And again, I'll pimp out our. Let me save this here just in case I'm talking a long time, and this is what people get upset with at times, but I hope it's interesting. We do mostly on Fridays. We do a movie night. It's night in Europe. It's afternoon here in California, so you can figure out where you are. On Discord, it's a watch party. And, I think there was maxed out at 7 briefly, but it was mostly 6 people watching the last one. And I try to, I'm not entirely the arbiter, but we sort of agree upon it, but sort of the presenter of about the movie. So I sort of looked up some of the stuff. So I looked into All's Quiet on the Western Front. The author is a German veteran of World War One. Definitely saw some combat in World War One. In the 20s, he writes All's Quiet on the Western Front. And it gets translated into English and other languages. It is definitely a rather good seller in Germany. It is a bestseller in other parts of the world. And I think partly because it is criticizing the war as badly as it does, but it's criticizing it from the German perspective, so it doesn't upset the British or the French or the Americans or whoever that actually fought in the war. So since it's criticizing everything but looking at it from the German perspective, it's a little easier to take by the other people in the war, that were in the war. And the book sales makes the guy a reasonably rich man. He goes on to write other war books that are anti-war, and I think it's 1932, but it's definitely by 1933 the movie is released. I'm not sure exactly. All's Quiet on the Western Front. So yes, it's before World War. Yes, Eric. Yes, Remarque. And he actually sort of changes or whatever, and they criticize him. And the Nazis come to power, and the book is banned, and the movie is banned in Germany because political reasons. And he had already, before this happened, with his proceeds, he had already bought a house in Switzerland. So because when the Nazis come to power, as they're coming to power, he moves to Switzerland, continues writing anti-war books. None of them, to my knowledge, get turned into films, and I don't think they're nearly as good. It's just they're sort of catching lightning in the bottle. I'm not saying that they're bad written or whatever. It just sort of caught lightning in the bottle with the sort of first one, and it does really well. And then I believe he eventually moves to America before the actual real war starts out, or maybe he stays in Switzerland all the time. Yeah, he was German from Alsace-Lorraine, and he's criticized for going with the more French spelling of his name than a German one, and so the Germans are attacking, him through those aspects as opposed to attacking what what the movie actually has to say. But I just want to judge it. Yes, shelling in the forest, the Americans goes through the Band of the Brothers, absolutely, among others. Yeah, goes yes. That's dramatic. The Hurt Again forest, or the Hurt Again forest, as the Americans sort of call it, or when Winters orders replacements of Ivy League LT and Lieutenant Spires takes over. Yes, those. It's a very good series, and it's been a long time since I've seen that one too. But I have watched that as well as Band of Brothers. I've sort of checked out on a lot of movies and not watched more modern stuff since 2010, so I'm just so disappointed in them. I'm still finding jewels of the 1930s that I haven't seen before, that are much better movies in my opinion. Now, sort of the message that war is terrible and bad in All's Quiet on the Western Front is a sort of a new message, because although war has always sort of kind of been terrible and bad, and sometimes very terrible and very bad, a lot of times in the European experience, it was marching around and being a soldier and doing that for, once the war starts, for, let's say, 90 days. And then you have one day of a big battle that you're all shooting at each other with muskets. And rarely are there more than, 10 or 20% casualties. And so not a lot of people dying. And people are dying all the time anyways from farm accidents, but Since they don't have penicillin or other antibiotics, it gets infected, gangrene, and dying. So you're dying on the farm. You're dying in the proto factories. Pre-industrialization, proto factories. You're dying all the time. You're catching all kinds of diseases from bad water. People are dropping like flies. Women are dying in childbirth. People are just dying. People are dying, and not because they made it to old age. People are dying all the time. So war is more hazardous than being a forester, a guy who chops trees in the forest, but not tremendously more hazardous, and and not society destroying hazardous. Generally speaking, we can talk about sieges of some cities that get really ugly, and I'm thinking the 18th and 17th century, and it can get pretty bad at times. And you look at the religious wars, the 30 Years' War in Germany and whatnot. It can get bad. Yes, I'm not saying it's all parades and an exciting day that a few people die and a few people are injured, and it was worse than that. But it wasn't like World War One. World War One was just shattering, and there is a lot of criticism to go around during World War One. The British and the English-speaking world get a lot of criticism for their supposed, which and it was to a degree, continuing tactics of we're going to slow walk into the machine guns because we don't want to, because one, we're the Anglos, and the Anglos don't get too excited because they've had a long tradition, a successful tradition of when the French or somebody else would shout and yell and charge at the enemy, the English would just stand there silent and unnerving the enemy, being silent, and then in either advancing, marching silently, to the drums, tut, 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 or whatever, as they're moving forward, but, and the drums are going at the pace of the marching, which is setting the pace. And, but otherwise sort of silent, and then using the volleys and using the muskets, that the English officer going into World War One wants to control his people, and so they're, trying to measuredly move forward. Now, part of, so they're walking, but part of it is, of course, and they barely mention this in the new movie, is the creeping barrage that they're hopefully trying to be right behind, so that it's covering their advance, and so there's things, and so the Somme and whatnot you can criticize, and you get a lot of, and I know I've talked about this before, and I'm not going to go into it. You get a lot of anti-war movements out of post-World War One, but what the anti-war people are sort of, at least publicly criticizing, as I've talked about, I think there's a lot of hidden motives with some of these groups, but in fact, I just say it, they want to destroy the society as they know it. But the public criticism is, I'll get to plastic gangsters here, age of industrial age casualty rates, yes, is the inability of the political leaders, and for Germany that is the Kaiser, really. I mean, there's a lot of civil political element, and there's sort of the military is sort of a separate state out. It's sort of not under in the German Empire, and there's multiple militaries, and not just little small ones, but like the Bavarian is sort of a separate establishment that only somewhat complies to the Prussian establishment. But especially in the Prussian establishment, the civilian administrative government that Bismarck sets up, again a military leader, has no real say over military actions. Now, the ultimate leader, the Kaiser, does. The civil, the Reichstag and all the political people, they have say over civil administration of the German Empire, not of the military. The military is not under their control. It is not like what we think of as a modern day command structure. So it is really the Kaiser and others, and people in the West too. But it takes both sides, and this will get to my point in a moment, to stop a war, is the criticism of not being able to recognize the utter futility of continuing the war. There are reasons for that war that happened, and I would say some of them are very legitimate reasons, especially Austrian Archduke being assassinated by a Serbian Serbian-sponsored terrorist that then blows up into a world war. And there's bad actions on, with them particularly on that side, but more bad actions on the Austro-German side than on the Western Allies. But there's bad actions everywhere. The inability to recognize that the military means are already stalemated, and before the years go by, before it is clearly shown as a defeat, there should have been a negotiated settlement. But what the pacifist movement, I'm not talking about some religious group pacifists like we have in the Americas, the Quakers and the whatnot. I'm talking about the sort of secular pacifist movement. Again, I believe their primary mission is to destroy society, to bring about a better one. Of course, it's not like they want to burn down the buildings just to burn down the buildings. They have a belief in an enlightened, better society somehow. But that's another debate that I'll get into. Yes. Garvino, precepts of the Black Hand, absolutely. I'll get to some of your comments. I do appreciate them, Plastic Inkster. I will get there. That they want to put an end to war, these peaceniks. Well, look, if you disarm, all you're going to do is let the barbarians, whoever the barbarians, and I'm not talking about skin color or language, but whoever the barbarians are, they're going to come and take what you have. Whether they're poor people from some destitute part of the world or some highly advanced, technologically industrial developed group, Germany, when Hitler and his barbarian group get in power, are going to come and attack you, okay? Sometimes you do not have a choice as to whether you're going to go into a war. And as we can see, and it can be with Islamic fundamentalists who, if they took over Europe, will not allow Christianity to flourish. Now, they might not on day one be burning all the churches down. They might be. They might have a conciliatory, okay, the idea of we'll convert them over 2 or 3 generations or something. But they aren't going to allow, if I'm talking in the modern world, I'm looking at Iran. We can see the protests going on in Iran. So it's not an attack on the Iranian people. I'm talking about the fundamentalist element there. If they were to take over Western or Europe in general, they are going to establish an Islamic theocratic state that is going to impose and get rid of the culture and the indigenous Europeans. Get rid of their way of life. So genetically they may survive, but they will not survive as anything that we would recognize today if they got into power. So where in Hitler's case they were trying to remove genetic groups as well as cultural identities and whatnot. So either you give up and you're going to die literally, and for peace, march into the ovens. Well, I'm against war. Okay, there's an oven right over there. Please just climb in and we won't have a war. We'll just put you into an oven. And that, in my opinion, is literally, the possible and has happened in the middle of the 20th century, not fully 100 years ago, solutions. And we can see more recently, with the Soviets and in Eastern Europe or whatever, and Mao Zedong's, so it's warfare isn't always a choice. And sometimes even when it is a choice, you're looking at, people in America and other places around the world are becoming, especially America, is not so much anti-war as an anti-military, but hey, we don't want to send troops here. We've been sending troops here and everywhere. It's sort of like the America First type people. And they talk about the neocons that always want to get into them, and some of them always want to get into every little war out there in the world. And I agree with that point. We don't need to get into every little war out there. But if you look at somebody like Iran, And I believe it's not just rhetoric, not just the anti-American rhetoric that's meant to, well, it's just, to unite the people, because, get them away from the distractions of the, local problems, and let's, distract them with international problems or something. No, they truly mean it. So if they were to get nuclear weapons, I truly believe they have a doomsdayish cult mentality of Islam, unlike the rationalists of the Soviet Union. They were rationalists. The Soviet Union was rationalist, so their nuclear use, I would say, if it was to happen, and they haven't done it yet, obviously, but and they collapsed without doing it, firing off all their nuclear weapons. I think Iran's use is very likely if they get nuclear weapons. So I would consider, if you make the conclusion of, and I do for Iran, is they are a existential threat to Western civilization, and if they get nuclear weapons, they would be willing to use them at some point, not day one, but at some point. And so should we wait for them to have nuclear weapons and be the aggressor openly, because they are, however open or covert, they're supporting the aggression against Saudi Arabia, because they are the ones, the Houthis are sort of in this part of Yemen. It used to be North Yemen, but Yemen here. They were the ones that started the civil war and started to overthrow the Yemeni government, and it was supported by arms and equipment from Iran. So and then the Saudis invade, yes. And they're even in the West now. And the Saudis have been brutal at times. I'm not saying they haven't, and they probably intentionally, or not, maybe not intentionally, knowingly attack civilian targets because they believe their military targets also there. So civilians died, and they may have also mistakenly attacked targets, airstrikes or whatever that hit civilians, and they thought they were, they're fighting a war and they don't care. And they haven't been able to win because the Saudis are a fragile society, and it's a small, not terribly great professional army. We can go into some of the more reasons why of that some other time, but that is clearly, and it was prompted by Iran promoting up the Houthis, clearly Iranian aggression. So I see that as an aggressive state. And so do we wait for them to, Iran to attack somewhere in the West? Or wait to them to give a nuclear weapon to a terrorist type group, and then they hopefully covertly, the thing that I fear is giving one or more nuclear weapons and then putting them in a shipping container. Now, maybe I fear it more because I live somewhat near a shipping port, but that they put those in and then ship them enough, or play hide the pea and ship it around the world enough, and before it gets to a Western target, it's not well scanned or checked, and all of a sudden it either blows up in port, or some, knowingly or unknowingly, some trucker gets that shipping container put on the back of his truck, and it drives into Paris or something, and it blows up. So asymmetric warfare that then we would track back to Iran. Do we wait for that? And if they already have a bunch of missiles and other things, nuclear missiles, do we wait for that to go to war, or should we just go now? Sort of like, had France aggressively moved against Germany, particularly when they were remilitarizing the Rhineland, and had they aggressively moved, because Germany was super weak at that point, that would have, and been willing to fight, not just because Hitler had given orders that if France moves in, fall back out of the Rhineland, do not militarily engage the French. But if they had just done that and they moved back, well, that probably wouldn't have done anything. But had they aggressively attacked into Germany, Germany probably would have meant a German military coup against the Nazis and the collapse of the Hitler regime. And at least we wouldn't have had World War II as we knew it. Now, maybe we would have had a worse, more devastating nuclear war 20 years later. I don't know, but not with Germany as the focus, maybe with the Soviet Union. I don't know. But so maybe we got the least bad war by what we did. But we may have been able to miss the bullets. So I'm not entirely, so sometimes when you talk about the choices of choosing to go to war, even though it's going to kill lots of people, including your own, sometimes good leadership realizes that it's the thing to do. Sometimes, again, war you cannot be involved or evaded. Okay, and plastic gangster, industrial age rates of battle, yes, before were fancy uniforms and parties for the officers and 3 square meals a day for the troops. Well, at least when supply was good, yes. They failed to learn the lessons of the American Civil War. Who said it first? The generals are always prepared to fight the last war. Absolutely. It's attributed to Winston Churchill, but I can't find any record of him saying it. I have looked before. Yeah, well, it's known that I don't know where that comes from, but it is, and there's good reasons for it. Armies don't change until they absolutely have to. And part of that reason is they've been successful. Because they have a state and they're successful. It's only when they're unsuccessful, like Germany after World War I, do they change. France did not change after World War I. They just improved World War I with, oh, well, the FT-17 worked great. Well, instead of having two versions, one with a machine gun and one with a main gun, let's just put them both together in the one and build a better FT-17. Your Renault and your Hotchkiss 35s, Okay, instead of trying to come up with better tanks, they just do World War I tanks super good, basically. And the Char-B, the Salma is sort of getting into a rethinking of the tank and making it better. But the Char-B is just, I forget the toy jet, remembered, yes, the Chaumont or whatever. Just sort of doing that better and effectively. So France does not learn from World War I. Britain has learned a bit before World War I from the Boer War, because although they do win, they take a lot of casualties. So they learn from it, and they're getting ready to make a better, newer military. But World War I breaks out, and so they sort of revert back. But they're learning. So militaries only learn when they only change when they absolutely have to, because either they were unsuccessful the last time, so they change, or they were successful the last time, so they don't change and they continue their success. And sometimes that can go on for several generations. Yes. Oh, I want you to talk, and it makes it good. I appreciate it. If I was just talking into nobody, I would just stop these things and make them on my own, and I still do that at times instead of make it live. Okay, so now back to time on target. Well, okay, we're going to stop this episode, not the live stream, just this episode, because I don't want to get too long. We'll talk where I was going when I started down the World War I and other things. So thanks, everyone. See you next time for even more, more Hearts of Iron. And yes, let's start another episode. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 playing Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice, and we're playing as America, and we're going to look at time on target. And I know some of you out there know what this is, so forgive me, but I do think not everybody understands. This is, and we're, okay, sort of started before the tangent took off on the last episode. If you watched it, I think very good interaction, but we'll continue. So, if the way you normally do artillery, now in World War I, the lines were so static, they could fly over, in their days, do aerial photography, find out where the enemy trenches were, map them out on paper, figure out where their artillery pieces are, and calculate the firing tables, what rate, what angle you need to put the guns and all that stuff, and pre-calculate everything for a barrage. And the reason they would do that is so that, because everybody had what they called dugouts, not just the trenches, but the dugouts where they actually sort of lived, that were down deep enough that more or less, unless it was a super direct hit by a very big gun, they would not be harmed in their dugout. And they normally had enough shovels in case the entrance collapsed to be able to dig their way out. So the artillery would be not very effective. You still have some effect, but won't go into all that now. Now, on a more mobile battlefield, like World War II was, is the way artillery works, and it still works to this day in this way, is somebody up front calls for artillery. We need to shoot at this bunker here. And we're going to presume that it's something that somebody built within the last few days, so it's not on the map. But there's a building over here, and there's a thing over here, a hill or whatever, that are on the map, and they estimate that it's here. So they call in the artillery. And the artillery goes, okay, let me fire around at where I think it is. How close was that to the target? Oh, we'll adjust. And okay, fire again. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, now that we got that, okay, now artillery barrage, we all fire a bunch of rounds at the target. Well, given that time, one, the unit can move. Two, if they do have trenches and whatnot, they can get to cover. With time on target, it is designed to, you still may need to do the spotting round, but especially with the campaign in Northwest Europe, they mapped this area of Europe out exceedingly well. There was a huge mapping effort, and to the point of collecting everybody's that they could pre the war's photos, doing aerial photography, and then translating that into, along with known maps, translating that into maps, so that even war games today can use literally photorealistic, every little hedge, every little tree is in the right place, because they did for Normandy and some of these areas that level of detail, and we have those photographs, and some of them are even sort of in 3D because they can do stereoscopic photography. And so you get these maps that are to this day are what it was before the invasion of Normandy, literally down to the smallest details. Well, that's how well some of this area particularly has been mapped. So with time on target, what they do is, if they're going to shoot at this bunker, and they're pretty sure they know where they are, because they can pretty sure figure out where they are on this very hyper accurate map for World War II or modern day satellite generated maps. And they have a very good idea of where they are. And part of the request for spotting shots is so you maybe don't hit friendly troops, as opposed to just simply missing the target. But so they're pretty good. And again, with modern GPS, this is almost assured so long as you're getting that information correct. But even in World War II. So what they would do is set this up for time on target. So if you fire, if 5 guns fire 1 round and they all land, and they're gonna, because you're not just shooting at a single bunker, you're shooting at a bunch of positions around here. A lot of guys are gonna lay flat or quickly dash into a trench or something like that, and we'll call it just fine. I'm not saying they're not shaken up. They're not saying they're not suppressed. I'm not saying they're not getting ready to reposition, meaning run away. Not necessarily flee the battlefield, but flee to another position because this one's been found out. But, so they're getting ready to do something like that. But instead of shooting, 5 guns shooting once, the 5 guns will shoot 1 round. Well, the first round will be way up like this. The second round will be about this. And then it's about like this, and then it depends on how many they get there. And this one. And so this trajectory is shorter than the one that goes way up high and comes down. So if, let's say all 5 guns fire 3 rounds, that's 15 rounds landing on the target simultaneously. That's the idea, is so that it saturates this area before, fire for effect is once you've got the spotting rounds established. So, time on target is landing all these rounds simultaneously, or as close as it can be. And the Americans were able to do this I don't think, unless the British, because the British were mostly using different artillery, so they weren't able to do this, and the Germans, to my knowledge, weren't able to do this, partially because the Germans just don't have ammunition. A calculator, more or less, is a person back in World War II, not a machine. And the calculators, and they were often women back in the U.S., calculated a bunch of ballistic information. And so they could quickly look in books that the artillery people had. So they didn't have to do the calculations at the field in the time. Now they could look at and go, okay, we shoot one round at, this angle, then as fast as we can, change the gun to this angle, and then change the gun to this angle, and all three of those rounds will all hit on that same location. And so they had all these tables of artillery in little booklets, that they carried with them, the artillery did. They did all of this more than anybody else in the world had at the time. And so they, had to find a similar, altitude to altitude, because, if you're firing, what's your altitude here and what's the altitude here affects, you missing the target. Because if you're 20, 30 feet down and they're 20, 30 feet above your, whatever the level playing field is, that affects it to you totally miss the target if you don't take those calculations into to effect. So it's not just where it is on the map, but what's, in these hyper realistic maps had elevation standards. So you go, oh, well, we're at elevation whatever, they're at elevation something else. Look that up as part of the table and not just distance. So they were able to do it. So time on target is a very now we have ballistics computers. Yes, now that is computerized. I do sort of hope, not just for tradition's sake, but just because I don't trust computers to always be there and always be working, that I do hope the Americans and most Western militaries do train their officers how to do the old style stuff, just so that they know it. Not that they're ever going to use it, but just so that they know how to do old style artillery calculations. So it's not a lost capability, just in case GPS disappears because somebody shoots a bunch of nuclear warheads into space that won't have a blast effect, because it has very little blast effect in space. Unless you're basically impacting the satellite. But shoot up EMP, nuclear weapons that go off that create big EMP fields up in orbit. Now, they may shoot them high enough so that they don't affect Earth, or they may shoot them up just so that they affect Earth as well, but they might not want to black their own stuff out. But they just black out the GPS satellites and just turn them all off. And I'm sort of not terribly surprised, because I don't think Russia wants to expand the war. But if Russia were to turn off the American satellites that are giving GPS, but maybe the Russians are using the GPS satellites themselves, so they don't want to do it. I don't know. But yeah, they need to be able to do this. Some modern artillery is that they must do. My cousin is a LT in the RN, and they still have to learn navigation by the stars and charts, even though they'll have GPS. Yeah, GPS and inertial navigation systems on the ships that don't require it. Yeah, they should hopefully have to learn that type of stuff too, and not, just in case all these other modern things go away. I'm just old school that way. I still shoot with iron sights, although I don't know if I have any more modern sights. Yeah, one, but not much. I have shot with them, and they are improvement, but still, that Russians cannot attack the U.S. or EU or any other country's satellites. That would be war. How is a pipeline different than a satellite? Now, maybe that pipeline was owned by Russia, but I don't know. Hello, Mr. Duck. When people play, say, almonds meal like cyanide, they mean bitter almonds, not sweet almonds. Okay. Good to know, Mr. Duck. How are you doing today? Okay, so that's time on target. I know, sort of a little distraction there, but okay. So we've got time on target. we're readjusting for that. Let's again move this down just a little bit. We're trying to max production here somewhat, dealing with getting a lot of other things going. Okay, I'm trying to focus mostly on things that we're actually either building or likely to build. And fortunately, the lack of my preparedness in production of things like refineries does not affect our ability to research stuff. So America is very ahead on researching things. Okay, we'll do that. You can die from a handful of, bitter almonds have up to 9 milligrams of cyanide in them. Okay, well, good to know. I know I've never really liked almonds, so I'm going to stay away. Oh, I'm doing very good because the pipeline could be done covertly. We cannot prove it was them. Yeah, well, one thing, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but, North Korea is again shooting missiles off, and some are just sort of out here. A few of them flew over Japan. Back in the early 2000s, basically when Obama was president, maybe Bush, but definitely Obama, North Korea was shooting a lot of ballistic missiles up really high. And they would get up fairly high, and then they would explode. And it was often reported in the media. I don't know what actual governments privately are thinking, but that these were failure test missiles, and these were missiles of a scale that could carry a nuclear weapon. And it was pointed out that the missiles, and whether they were, that the missiles were all blowing up just at about the right height for an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, which will fry most electronics, basically, and I'm not an expert on this, but basically things that are not in Faraday cages. But supposedly you can harden the general electrical grid infrastructure enough that it can still function and survive these if you build it that way, but they don't. And so that these aren't necessarily failures to launch. These are an attempt at developing a missile that can do asymmetrical nuclear war. North Korea didn't nuke Japan. North Korea just fired a few missiles up and into the stratosphere or above, maybe, up out of the atmosphere, and detonated them. It isn't our fault that because of that, all the electronics in Japan are no longer working because we didn't nuke them, we didn't attack them, we just fired something up into space and it detonated. Or some submarine that crudely to the modern ways that, now I know we watch and maybe we would sink it before it got anywhere near us, but crudely sailed out here, sailed off here, sailed out here somewhere, and fires a missile way up in out of the atmosphere, up into, which America sort of kind of says ideologically, hey, space, no one owns space, we can fly nuclear, or we can fly satellites or whatever above your space, you can't do anything about it. That's just because the U.S. says we can. And so they send a missile up into that anybody's zone, detonate it at the right height to take out, say, just one missile, the right height, take out the bulk of the Western U.S.A.'s electronics, which basically shuts down food because it shuts down all of the trucks. And if they fire it, especially during the day, they'll shut down all of the freeways because they'll be full of cars that'll immediately stop working. And so there will be no way, literally no way, to get food to the people. And so people will starve. It'll be maybe not as bad as a nuclear weapon, but could easily kill millions, I mean millions of people from the effects of the, let alone people that need need insulin, and insulin needs to be refrigerated or frozen or whatever to be stored. Those people are going to die because they won't be insulin that's usable by them. And people in hospitals will just all die because they'll immediately not have enough electricity to function. And those will die, but the lack of food and the lack of water for the pumping stations and all that other stuff will just mean that they'll be dying of thirst. And to get back to that point is, well, no, Russia just exploded a nuclear weapon up in orbit above its own country. Now, they, like I say, it's high enough that it won't do an EMP back down to ground-based systems. A few airplanes might fall out of the sky, but that's no big deal. And sort of like when they shut down the Dutch, or the Indonesian flight or the whatever KLM flight, that was an act of war. And that's why Arno, who's here, who hates the Russians, partially because of that very incident. The Netherlands didn't declare war on Russia. And so if Russia blows up satellites over its own territory, because it may claim the space above Russia, and they may be very sure to not even blow it up over Ukraine, blow it up over here, but take out all the GPS and be ready to, as the next GPS system comes orbiting in, another one goes up, and 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 they're just detonating them up in space above their own country. They're not attacking American satellites. What? Why are American satellites in our space above our country? And we're not talking way out at the moon's orbit. We're talking about fairly damn close orbit. We're not talking about, and to go out to proper synchronous orbit, out at the equator or some other place, but sitting out there, they've got to be way out there, and that's way out past the GPS satellites. Those satellites wouldn't be affected by this, likely. I don't think, but I'm not sure. So yeah, they might be able to get away with obliterating satellites over their own territories without going to bigger stuff. Okay. Let me come back here. Don't mean from Mars upon, according to Facebook, it was you guys. Yeah, well, don't trust Facebook. I don't. You can shield stuff. Most battlefield computers are meant to be shielded. Yes, I know you can shield from EMP, and I know you can, and I know you can also go primitive, like a 1950s automobile will run just fine after an EMP. I'm not sure sort of where the cutoff is. So some electronics will just continue to work fine. Older stuff, and you can shield stuff. I don't know what levels of shielding it requires. I'm just not an expert on it. I just know it exists. NATO doctrine is to treat an EMP detonation as the same as any other nuclear detonation and will result in the same response. Right, but if Russia detonates a nuclear weapon somewhere inside Russia, I almost said Soviet Union, but inside Russia, that's Russia detonating a nuclear weapon inside the Soviet Union. And what I'm talking about is not detonating a EMP over NATO territory, or even one that affects. I was talking about Korea doing something crazy. I'm talking about a rational Russia not detonating a EMP that's going to affect Poland or the Baltic states. No, it's just going high enough to take out satellites, low-level satellites over Russia. Not low-level satellites over Britain or some other place. So they're just doing, at most they could claim, they could just claim, well, we're just testing, missiles and nuclear weapon missiles and whatever. We're not targeting anything. They could claim, or they go, we're shooting down satellites over non-Russian satellites over Russia. And just we claim the space above us. And if you fly anything over there, we have the right to shoot it down. So go, so if you want, go ahead, fly it over, but we have the right to shoot it down. They could say, and they'd have a point. I think Arno's a bit lower. You pointed at Friesland. Okay, yeah. I've just right of Rotterdam. Okay, yeah. So lower going through. Okay, I was joking. It was meant smiley dance. Okay, I don't know. Actually, there's a moratorium on nuclear test. Yeah, I know, but I think, I know the British Ministry of Defense calls the invasion of Ukraine illegal. So it's sort of like all these anti-gun people that are saying, we need to outlaw guns. That'll make us safe. And these are this, and and I just go, well, why not outlaw murder? Well, but if we make it hard to get guns, because they'll go, yeah, murderers aren't going to follow the law. We know that. But we want to outlaw the guns to make it harder to get them. You mean harder to get like drugs that seem to flow freely? That if there was a desire for people to buy guns, they would be flowing into America. Because Russia or North Korea or Iran would sell guns to the same people that sell, import illegal drugs, to import illegal guns if it was if it was profitable, and they would flood America with guns that way. So, like they flood drugs. So the same people that are wanting to ban drugs and have shown an unwillingness to win the war on drugs are going to also be doing the same thing with guns. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to work out well. At least that's my estimation of it. So, yeah, if you're already invading, well, I love guns, but you Europeans, Mr. Duck, don't seem to, because you don't seem to have very many guns running around your country. So, we both know the purpose of Russian attack on U.S. military assets in space or anywhere will result in war. I don't know that it would. It might, but I don't know. But what does Russia think? What does Russia think the Biden administration will do? Because because I often slip up, Biden may order a nuclear strike on the Soviet Union, and the military people may wander around the map looking for where the Soviet Union is, and not find it, so not strike back. And do remember the American military, in the name of General Miley, called up somebody in China and said, no matter what Trump tells me to do, I'll call you before we attack you. So don't worry about being attacked in Trump's rhetoric. A fucking American general, without the permission of the president, I'm sure Trump didn't give that permission, calls up China and says, I'll be an informant to you before we do anything. Now he's thinking like deploy ships or something, or attack. So don't worry, he's just being a hothead and saying stuff. I'll let you know before we attack, so that you can withdraw your forces, so we won't attack, or whatever, presumably. So yeah, maybe he's called Russia up and told Putin, I'll let you know if any of your actions are actually going to get a U.S. response. So just, you can call me up and we've war gamed what we'll do. And so, like, if you want to know what we're going to do for if you shoot down satellites. And, shoot down satellites. Oh, that's an actual true embargo. Or maybe that's an actual true blockade or whatever. So maybe Russia knows what the response would be. That's just the kind of thing. Eurovision song, I don't care about that. I do look forward. Okay, I don't care about World Cup either. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm very confident in our leadership here in the West. We were pushing into there, we're pushing into there, that's good. Okay, division headquarters have advanced, that's nice. Yeah, 40. We do good. You can feed in more oil. Troy Franco, Spain, what is that? No, we don't. Okay. Advanced armor designs. Okay, that is good. Yeah, 45. Stop that. Shift that over to our light armor so we can improve that. Get basically the Chaffee type thing. Small air search radar. I believe that is here. Okay. Well, we can do here. Yes, just improve. And what is still proximity fuses? Oh, those things. Our proximity fuses. Is it under? No, I have my problems with what the Black Ice team does, but I do think they've done also a bunch of wonderful stuff. So it's a love slash annoyance sort of relationship with all this stuff. I like to try to find it, but so I learned where it is. Maybe it was down here in special? No. Okay. The ones, oh, division headquarters here. Okay, did I remove do the wrong one? Undo it here. I think I did. So, well, but we don't want that one there either. So, okay. I know we're in 44 and we can do 45, but I mostly don't want to do that right now. Hey, thanks for following, Green Warber. How you doing? Well, yeah. Very good to hear. And it here. Use that to support that attack. We've now, I think, have cut, again, Italy's ability to supply through here. Tremendous firepower technique. Yes, tremendous. And it's firepower. Thinking it's here somewhere. Again, maybe it's there's time on target. See it here. Yeah, there, it's a one and done. Okay, good. Let's continue maybe with some of these naval, if there's any more 44 that I want to do. No. Okay, we can do fighter pilot training. We're going to do this stuff as efficiently as possible. Now, we secured this, so you attack up there and you support the attack. You need to take. Okay, how long until? Okay, 64 hours. That's a long time. But keep on. As soon as you can, go that. I lack supplies enough to be able to invade because I can't supply once I get there. Until we take the Suez, then I can start supplying again into the Mediterranean, but around Africa. Okay, yes. Okay, we won the battle there. Good. Reinforcing the units that need it. Reading other forces. Okay, they've made it to here. And yes, push. Just keep, because you see all these retreating units and we're not letting them pause to get reorganized. Okay, who wants to trade? Bolivia? No, thank you. Twin engine fighter prototype has advanced. Very nice. Engine. That'll be okay. Now what we need to do is come over here because we moved our fleet out. Now they're still patrolling around. We still have fuel and reserve. Where is our big fleet? Here's our big fleet and our invasion fleet. Okay. That's pretty weak. So what I think we're going to do here is put you on board. You guys are some of the better invasion type forces. You guys head for Guam. Somewhat slower big fleet that hopefully will keep about the right pace for the. Oh, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Oh, what? Oh, these guys went on this. Oh, shoot. Okay. No. No. Okay. Everybody here off. Stay in port. Okay. Let's merge some of this. Okay, let's give them all the transports. And how are they doing for destroyers? Okay, pretty good. Pretty good, so I'll leave that there. Actually, we'll make this a little larger. That way that everybody gets on the right ships. They're well escorted. Leave 2 divisions. No, yeah. 2 divisions. Okay, they'll follow the same path, but they'll be slightly slower, so hopefully the carrier fleet will clear the way. Hey, Exurgent! I'm doing well. Well, I've been thinking, I don't know when we get a chance to talk. I know our schedules don't always match up, but I've been thinking about starting work on the next version of Third Reich events and things. I'm somewhat, not fully, somewhat along your line of making something a little more contained from black ice, but still requiring black ice. And I don't want to go into too much here, just what I'm thinking, but somewhere along there. When we nuke Japan, it's the only way? Yes. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I have not really been doing any of the nuclear development. So not anytime soon, I'm afraid, Arno. Maybe I should have been doing a Manhattan Project more. Well, that would be good. We can talk about what to do. I don't know. Yeah, we can talk about it. I don't know how much. I mean, I could use some help. We can figure out what should be done. I don't know. Okay, Plastic Gangster. I have a mod or a sub-mod for Black Ice. I call it Third Reich Events. And yes, I did sort of, not entirely, but sort of steal the name from the old Avalon Hill game, which I loved. It is an event mod that is becoming more and more than an event mod for Black Ice. So, and it's focused on Germany. But that's what that's doing. So that's what that is. Okay, industrial production advance. Very good. That will help me out. 46, that's too far in advance to do that. Discord is the best way for both voice and chat, probably, or as well as text chat. That's probably the best way, and that's where and you can also ping me, because I'll hear a ping, on Steam, because otherwise if I have the pinging notification for Discord, it would go off too often in the middle of streaming and other things. So I've turned that off, but a much fewer number of people I'm friended on Steam, and most of them don't ping me unless they actually want to talk to me and not just because of messages happening. Okay. So I think we may be friends on Steam. If not, you can probably find me. It's gamer_1745 there, like everywhere else, or we can hook up on Discord and make sure that you get the right friend thing there. Okay. I've got a mic. Just a bad one. Okay, Mr. Duck. Very important mineral which produces chlorium, which Germany needed desperately. High temperature alloys such as jet engines. Okay. I know they did. Okay. They just give a rough time this weekend, and I will call you. Do you want it in about 2 hours or 2.5 hours? I don't know if that's a good time for you. I have a mint copy of Advanced Third Reich Unpunched. Oh, wow. Advanced. Well, to me, Advanced was a... because I did play that. What I had was a... I had... My set... Much of my set got ruined when a in-roof air conditioner that I left on dripped so much liquid out that it collapsed the office ceiling tile. It was set up in an office on a table there, onto the map, and ruined so much of it. And I haven't played it since. I saved whatever was savable, but I had two sets that I sort of combined with in the saved part of it, a metal, box with little plastic drawers in it for the units, and I had I way back when, I forget how, but sent away and got a loose leaf binder, paper to put in a loose leaf binder that had the advanced Third Reich rules, the advanced rules, and there was, and I still have it somewhere, a good copy, though I've done photocopied and took some elements out of it, is a published magazine that had a bunch of alternate stuff in it. And one of the things was in a map extension that extended it down into Ethiopia. The Ethiopian part. Not like trying to go worldwide or whatever, but just sort of extended down here. And I photocopied that and glued it onto a piece of cardboard that I could put up to the Third Reich map. And then hand colored because it was just black and white, but hand colored in the map to match the rest. And that was sort of my big playing map of advanced Third Reich. And so it was a loose leaf set of rules that I had for advanced, not just Third Reich. So that's what I had. Question: have you ranted today, or are we just dropping it? No, I'm going to not rant, but I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer what oh my god, because he's nice enough to respond. I want to give my viewpoint. I'm not attacking him. I think he's a good guy and all that stuff. Thank you, Arno, for posting the Discord up there if anybody wants to get in. Yeah, the General. That's right. It was in the General. It's sort of a special issue of the General for Third Reich, and I got that. And that's so the, like I say, loose leaf rules, and that the General special issue was sort of as advanced. And sometimes I play with some of the more silly rules that things they added, but it was glorious back in the day. And I even bought Third Reich on the computer and played it, but it really sucked. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Third Reich. The closest thing to Third Reich nowadays on the computer is Warplan. I know Alvaro, the dev for Warplan. I mean, I've talked to him on Discord several times. He's actually a member of the Discord channel. That's because we talk there. Not that he hangs out there much. He's busy doing global Warplan now. But because he was also a big Third Reich fan back in the day, and he's sort of basing it out of that more than Strategic Command's game, which he's done some work on that, helped those guys out way back when for some of Strategic Command. So yeah, if you want to play Third Reich on the computer today, the closest thing I would say is the base game of Warplan, not the Pacific one. That would obviously be a Pacific version. So, and he's tried to improve on it. But it's very much so it's not like a faithful representation of Third Reich on the computer. No, he's taken what Third Reich was and improved it for the computer, and I think has done a wonderful job. So if you're okay, see him, Mr. Duck, see you later. I ain't got it yet, but want Warplan. It looks like a pure hex and computer war game translation. Yeah, that's basically what it is. So and it's 2-week turns. It's very similar to Strategic Command World at War. But it answers some of the stacking problems that I have with Strategic Command. Now, you can't stack ground units, but instead of having separate specialty units, like in Strategic Command, like an anti-tank unit or whatever, you sort of adds one specialty to a ground unit, that sort of makes it stacking, and you can stack as much naval units in either one hex or one port that you want, and you can stack an air unit on top of a ground unit and naval unit if it's in the port. So it does answer some of my stacking problems with strategic command. Okay, Exurgent. Have a good meal. Yeah, there's some things that, like I say, I think strategic command does better. Okay, we're going to stop this attack before it gets too far out of hand. We're being counterattacked there. Now we're doing that well. Industrial zone organization, that is here. Okay, I think we're good enough on all of that. We got all of that. These add to an air. What those do is take one of these air bases that are here, and every one of these adds additional stacking ability for air units on the air base. Just to know what industrial efficiency. Medium velocity. Okay, which is the next one there, which is here. Okay. Continue with pilot trainings for 44. Oh, we got a lot of heavy bombs. A lot of heavy bombs. Aircraft, which I think is grayed out, yes. And we can come down here and we can look at pilot training to make our aircraft function better. I like so yeah, you might want to green warbler. You might want to check out Warplan. I also know Bill and Herbert from Strategic Command. I have not talked to them in voice chat, but I've texted with them a bunch of times, and they've also hung out when I've streamed their games for them. So I know Bill and Herbert, who are the two main devs for Strategic Command. So it's sort of like, you know, friends wise, I know all these guys and I like them. So I think they're all doing a good job with their game. But they're different games, and they like each other too. But yeah, Strategic Command does some of the, and not to my level of events that I've made for Third Reich events, because it has hundreds of events, maybe 1,000 or more. I don't know. I could look, but and a lot more detail. So it doesn't come to my level, but they got more events. They got some stuff they do better, I think, in Strategic Command than they do in Warplan. But most of the problems that I have with Strategic Command are answered in Warplan. So you might want to take a look at that. And Green Warbler, if you want, you could scroll down there on Twitch, because I don't know if you realize, but I'm also live on YouTube at the same time. So I'm talking to the two audiences, and nobody said anything over on Rumble yet. I'm watching, though I don't watch the Facebook stream. No, that would come back through. No, that does come back through the restream. So because I've seen Arno's posts over there for that. But you might want to go check out my YouTube channel, which there's a link if you scroll down on the stream page for Twitch. And there, look around my page and you'll see a bunch of different streams for Warplan. So, or not, well, mostly videos, not streams. So if you want to check that game out to see if it's something you want, I would, not just to convince you to watch my streams, but I do always promote up the idea that you should check things out like that before paying money for something that you may or may not want to play. Just because I like it doesn't mean you will. It may be just as problematic, or whatever, I hate using that word, just as bad for you as it is Strategic Command is, or something. I don't know. You can see here we're running out of supplies because Britain can't supply into here well enough. And that's because they've lost Gibraltar, not because they don't have enough transports, though that may also be an issue too. Funny enough, I started playing hex and counter games with Third Reich, but the best one, a similar scale, was World War II European Theater of Operations by TSR SPI. I know the company. I know of the game. I've never played it. It was very similar, but played even better. I believe you that it could have. I've just not gone beyond War Plan. The one that I was always in awe of, and this was when I was in my teens, way back in the day, was World in Flames. I didn't go to a lot, but I went to a few gaming conventions, and I remember particularly one in which they had actually magnetized the whole damn thing, and sort of brought it in on a sheet metal wall, if you will, and so stood it up at a not quite vertical but an angle, but so that the counters would stick to the magnet, so the paper was, I don't know, glued or whatever to the metal, the map, and the counters were sort of magnetized so that they were able to move them around and we could watch. And I remember that as being, I never had enough space or friends that would learn it enough, and we didn't have the internet. So yeah, that large, but I remember that large but basic. Yeah, well, but I found it to be very detailed, though I don't know the other game well enough to compare it. And right now, because of these supply problems, is why I haven't moved all of these forces over here. Because one, we are doing reasonably well, and but we can't supply them. So I've always wanted to sort of play. And the computer game, which I hear is good for World in Flames, I don't. Is also fairly expensive, not super, not like the game. Cardboard game is, but expensive. But it doesn't have an AI, and yeah, now I'm more connected and whatever. I'm sure I could find somebody to play against me, but it's also time of day and when, and I'm not sure what it is currently on it. I know they have a War in Flames computer game, and I'm not following it closely enough. That was always sort of, yeah, we'll buy fuel. Yeah, give us a cushion from what's being trained. May just cheat in more fuel. That was what was really stopping me from playing. Okay, so we're going to take all of the forces that just showed up here. Okay, Marines, Army, leaving that other stuff. Get on board ships. Okay. We're going to invade Saipan. Invasion. Let's see where they go. Okay, they're going up to there. Oh, you guys. Let's look over to naval operations. Okay, we're sinking some of their transport. Somebody's sinking some transport over here. So let's convoy raid aggressively out there with them. They're the ones that are doing the invasion. These guys are going to come up here and protect the invasion. Get up there. Okay. That way, if the Navy nearly bought it a long time ago, but lack of an AI was too, yeah, that's the thing. Even if it's as bad as the because it is more of a turn-based game, so you should be able to program it easier. The difficulty, this is a difficult thing to program. I'm not going to pretend it isn't or something. It is. Program the AI for Hearts of Iron. For as much as we criticize it, I realize that it's a difficult thing to program. And even if they had a basically decent one, I would be playing it until I just, for some reason, decided not to. I'm not. Maybe something would sort of get in that way. But until that happened, I would definitely be playing it. Okay, you come down here. No, yeah. You know, well, with streaming and all, I might be able to convince, I don't know, somebody like you, Plastic Gangster or Exergen, that might have enough time to set aside a particular day and time a week that we could all get together. The idea of a Sunday afternoon or something. But there's enough other times that I just want to play something that just at random times during the day, and trying to find people that want to play just is a bit difficult. Okay, agriculture advance. I think that's under here. Construction maybe. Yes, 46. Stop that. Okay, good. But more manpower. Infantry guns advance. Nice. No, it's over here. Okay. That Green Man HQ has advanced. That is down here. It's at 47. We can start doing some of the 45 attacks if we want to, because we're in 44. The artillery brigades themselves has advanced. Okay, that's this unit here. Oh, no, we might have a few defensive heavies, but not many. Yeah, air defense is a worthy thing to have, but we're also coming over here to try to get like ground crew and whatnot for these various units up to good standards. The greater scope, the more complex the AI, especially in games without a turn structure for the computer to make its move. Yes. Again, if you don't, and I Plastic Gangster may know, but I'm saying you as in the general audience here, if you don't realize Hearts of Iron, I know 3, and I'm pretty sure 4 also, but I know 3 is a turn-based game. It doesn't look like it, it doesn't feel like it, but it's a turn-based based on the hour. It's an hourly turn, and it does sort of roll initiatives. So to us playing it, it feels like a real-time strategy game, but it is actually a turn-based strategy game with some sort of initiative system built into it every hour. So it is, certain things are calculated every month, certain things are calculated every day, certain things are calculated every hour. And so especially when you're talking about the combat AI, that is an hourly thing, and yeah, it is complex. So I understand it's difficult. I'm going to criticize it because it has problems. One, it's not just being critical, but two, if I don't criticize it and the other people don't criticize it, they or other people, I mean, obviously third edition or well, yeah, Hoi 3 won't get any better because they're not improving it, but they are still working on Hoi 4, and for whatever Hoi 5 maybe someday, long time in the future. They're not currently, the best I know, currently working on it, but probably will come someday. But if they, realize they need to do a better job, hopefully they'll do it. Okay. Yeah, back when it came out on the PC, there was no Twitch or any, absolutely had real life. Yeah, didn't have friends online. Expect I couldn't find somebody to play with, but there must be better games by now that the PC version comes out years and years ago. Yeah, I don't know. It's a more structured game than Hoi in that you get like units of like TBF Avengers or whatnot. You get these units as opposed to, and you do have some building, I think, capabilities, but it's more structured than freeform Hearts of Iron, either versions of it. Okay, we took out a torpedo boat. Good. Yay. And we took out a long range. Oh, pause. Long range submarine. Winning battles over there. Oh, shattered at Beersheba. Okay, we'll look. Okay. We took that. Okay, no, Beersheba is over here, and these guys were pushing. Okay, stop pushing. Stop pushing. Okay, that was the problem. All right, so we're going to hit these guys in the flank, and these guys will support that attacking flank on them. running, because again, we cannot get supplies to here. Fucking British lost Gibraltar. Weekly emphasis on some processes and monthly, yeah. Coming ashore here. Torpedo boat, we lost over here. Okay, whoa. Okay, well, we may be, okay. I want to save this because we're going a little fast here. Let's go to save. And medium bomber prototypes have advanced. Very good. Okay, we're coming up with that. Let's come over here and twin engine pilot training. That's the medium bomber. And we're going to end this episode of the live stream. Live stream will continue for those that are hanging out with me. But those watching later on YouTube, I want to thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagara, Timothy, Sirtoyjet, and Gary for support over on Patreon. And of course, Don Ramirez earlier for a super sticker. I really do appreciate that. Very cool. Really do that. But what I really ask you guys to do, if you can do it, I spend a lot of time trying to make this YouTube channel a success. I made a video asking people to help me before because I do think there is an educational and otherwise type mission more than just entertainment here that I want to continue to do. What I really ask you, if you could do for me, is if you're watching particularly the episodes, if you made it this far, and at future episodes, if you liked the video, if you comment, just say hi gamer or good video gamer or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be any sort of anything important or sounding cool, just the engagement of the algorithm of you saying, and I'll reply back because that also helps the algorithm reply, back and forth. So if you do that, is reply on these videos, it really helps because I want to get this out here to more and more people. So I really appreciate it if you guys would do that. That's what I ask you to do for me because I'm hopefully entertaining and informing and whatnot you while playing this. So thank you very much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Okay, let me just take a drink and we'll start again here. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Black Ice's Hearts of Iron 3. And we're playing as America. Now, we just had a loss of a motor torpedo boat over here, and I'm wondering, okay, we're seeing a coastal defense ship, a battleship, and 3 CVLs, which are not mine. Yeah, no, they're not mine. They're Japanese, and 2 CLs, light cruisers, and a destroyer. And it looks like, I don't know, maybe they're heading to port here. Oh, there's also a CVL here and a battleship there. The Goose something, I don't know. So we have here, there may be coming a naval battle here. They're invading Saipan. Hopefully with good odds to win. Been moving out here. Tungsten surplus. Good. Light bomber prototypes have advanced. Nice. Grayed out. Again, let's move this over to ground control, improvements, air superiority, tactics have advanced. That I believe is down here, and we can move this over to cast. We don't have much. That, and we've taken out 2 German submarines. Yes or no? Could Abdacom, and especially the naval forces, have won the Battle of Java Sea, and how would you think they could have won? Well, in the anything is possible, yes, meaning if the Japanese missed all their shots and the Abda force made all their shots at the enemy, they could theoretically win. But I don't think Abda force was going to win. I don't even think they thought Abda force could win. Before Abda force gets going, if I got it right, you lose the what is it, the Prince of Wales and the Repulsor or whatever, the Prince of Wales or whatever is bombed out here by the Japanese. That's in the very early days before Abda force is set up. This is basically the American element of Abda force here, I believe. And if just let everyone know, Arno's Dutch, so that's sort of why he's concerned about this. I don't even know how well Abda force can talk to each other. It's been a long time since I've really read anything on it, but I'm talking not. Yeah, of course there were Dutchmen that can speak English and whatnot. Not everyone else was from an English-speaking navy. I think I don't know were there any French ships. Free French. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. There was a lot of communication problems in this part of the world, and I recently come across, and I vaguely knew of this. I'm not a naval. World War II is really an infinitely huge subject to study because people are constantly creating more stuff to study about it and finding more stuff. So I mean, theoretically, it's finite, but in a practical sense, it's infinite. So I can't study everything. And naval and the Pacific War has always at best been secondary for what I want to study in World War II. But I do enjoy it and do study it a bit. When I did my Japanese playthrough, I read a bunch of books, watched a bunch of documentaries on the Pacific War and the Asiatic War from both the Allies and the Japanese perspective. But that was a few years ago, so it's not fresh in my memory. But so I was vaguely aware of a communication problem. And some of it was sort of, by some scholars, put down as a language problem between British, Australian, them, and speaking to the Americans. And it's something maybe of an accent problem. They sort of, I think, would surmise, but also just language use difference. But what really has sort of come out is the real problem wasn't that. There is a lot. The magnetic field in this part of the world is particularly stronger than other parts of the world, and there's a lot more magnetic interference. This partially shows up with the magnetic detonators of the torpedoes that particularly the Americans are using, that are specifically tuned and set up and not tuned anywhere else but up in this part of the world. So they work. I was going to say great. Now, they work reasonably well for the magnetic fields here. Get down here, they're detonating too far away, too much. Prince of Wales, if they were, the fleet in the Java Sea would have been, or would they have just been air targets? Now had they had more escorting ships, they would have had a little bit more air cover. But 1941 ships, and these are all basically 1941, as in constructed and set up in 1941. They're not 1942 ships. They're 1941 ships. They have minimal air defenses. And the Americans, even before the war starts, realize their air defenses on their ships are way too weak from fleet exercises against U.S. Carrier-based aircraft. And they start coming to this realization, but through the procurement system, through what is currently available in America, it's basically, okay, you have the 6-inch gun that there is a no, not a 6-inch, a 5-inch gun that has an anti-aircraft. The 25 caliber 5-inch gun is an anti-aircraft gun. That's good for long-range shooting stuff down, but only long range, not really close in. Basically, they don't have, the only other two other things is the Browning 50 caliber, mostly water cooled. Browning 50 caliber, which is very good. It's lovely, but they don't have many of them on the ship, and it's close in. And it's good enough close in, but good enough isn't the best by any means. And what they call the Chicago piano. The Chicago typewriter is the Tommy gun. The Chicago piano, or no, yeah, Chicago piano or Chicago, no, Chicago piano. That's the 4-barrel horizontally 1.1 inch caliber guns that are okay, but they're just at best okay. They don't have production of the Oerlikon or the Bofors at the start of the war in America. That comes, but they don't have that. And we can go into all of the how those work and how those become, for World War II, the most awesome anti-aircraft guns out there, basically. So all of these ships are vulnerable air targets, even at the best times. Now, yes, in with some support vessels and whatnot, they could do better. Prince of Wales and Repulse, they were good ships, very good ships. But the radio communication isn't good, again, from the magnetic situation going on in this part of the world. And okay, let's read. I personally think Abda naval assets should have been retreated to either Australia or Colombo. Right, I know, to fight another. That's exactly what I think should have happened. I wish they would have done that. That many forces saved. Yes, that would have been better. Yeah, but Force Z got too close to the enemy controlled by land-based air power. Yes, the RN had yet to learn that battleships no longer have. Yeah, absolutely, Plastic Gangster. Absolutely. They had occasional air cover from land-based. Prince of Wales and Repulse did occasional. Yeah, the Chicago piano, 28 millimeter 4-barrel. Yeah, used early World War II on most. Yeah, and those guns were used through to the end of the war on secondary vessels after pulled off the main ones. So they're an okay, but okay isn't good. Okay is like better than junk, if you know what I mean. They're okay. The 50 cal is great, and for most Japanese aircraft are very lightweight, but they're limited in their range, so an effective range. So yeah, the manning on World War II ships is very high level, particularly for the lots of manpower on it. I don't know if they have the manpower. I don't know if they have the deck space. I don't know whatever, but I would have. And some ships do, even when they're upgraded to 20 millimeters, retain their 50 cals, especially some of the light and heavy cruisers, that they actually mount them on they have them on little wheeled carts to move around the decks of the ship, because those would be good close-in additional firepower. Hell, I've even seen, I forget, I don't know if it was Enterprise or one of the carriers, on the bridge that's overlooking the flight deck. They've got a 50 cal, now it's an aircraft 50 cal, not a big water-cooled one, mounted right there, overlooking, the flight deck. So yeah, having a bunch of 50 cals mounted around your ship would, and as kamikazes happen later on, it becomes even more of an issue. But if you're looking at, hey, they're going to drop bombs from a fairly high altitude, hey, they're going to launch torpedoes from fairly far out, maybe the 50 cals aren't that important. And they may not be that important because they're just sort of getting somewhat in their effective range. It is in their effective range, but just somewhat. The 20 mils are going to do better. But as things come in closer, and especially if you're escorting whether it's a capital battleship or a carrier, meaning you're sort of near it, and the aircraft has to sort of fly over you, or shall we say, fly through your air defense zone to then launch a torpedo or whatever at the carrier or something. Your 50 calibers, or even your 30 calibers, if you've mounted those on your ships like destroyers or destroyer escorts, could come into play and be effective as an air umbrella for targets coming near you. They're just not prepared well enough at the beginning of the war. Nobody is. And only at the end of the war do they finally maximize. And with the U.S. in particular, I know I may sound like I'm bragging about America, and a little bit, sure, but it's also a fact. They, through their various guidance systems for their anti-aircraft guns, and as we saw, the proximity fuses, come out with the best possible pre-radar, locked-on, guided, Gatling gun, CWIS type things, the best anti-aircraft systems out there, and definitely the best in World War II. And so they're going to be the most effective. Not 100% effective, but the amount of aircraft, the amount of kamikazes that get shot down versus the ones that get through, that's damned effective. So it's not will not touch our ships. It will be, we're shooting, 95% of them out of the sky before they come in and hit. And I don't think the Japanese would have done the kamikazes if they realized how ineffective they actually were going to be. Because the Japanese aren't stupid. They're fanatical, but not stupid. They really think because they're seeing so many of their aircraft shot down and nothing sunk for their bombers and torpedo bombers and whatnot, well, let's just fly all the way in. And, well, the Americans by that point are able to shoot enough of them down that, maybe one carrier is sunk and a couple are sort of kind of knocked out. But with so many losses, that aircraft that could have been theoretically, obviously with the nuclear weapons it wasn't, could have been used for air defense or attacks on, naval invasions and other things more close in, more effectively maybe. Not that it would have saved the war. He's knocked out a good few of attacking aircraft and damaged many more before they're not yet equipped with copious AA. Would be later. Yeah, absolutely. If they had proper escorts, that would have in the war, right? That would have been better had they had proper escorts. But you remember, Britain is using all of its escorts as anti-submarine escorts so that they can, as well as other duties. And this is a backwater at the time of the war, so it was more of just a, hey, don't attack us. We still have forces to spare. We're not entirely vulnerable out here, like the French were. The defeated French were just occupy our territory. No, the Brits were saying with their capital ships out here, hey, we're still here. We're still an empire, even though we have this European war. You better be careful. And Japan says, yes, we'll be careful, but we're still going to attack. I think the 50 cals always be around on ships for the future. Well, yeah. Some nations use the more modern Browning 50 caliber with the quick change barrel, but they've yet to make a truly better heavy machine gun than the 50. I've seen some videos of some sort of prototypes of supposedly better guns, but I don't know that they're better. That in the range, and the Browning 50 caliber, it's a combination of the gun and the bullet that they shoot is better than the Russian one. Though the Russian one is good, maybe very good. It's just you've yet to get better than the Browning, and sometimes you don't want a big CWIS going out there shooting stuff down. You want to just put some 50 cal rounds into a Somali pirate ship. So sometimes you just want what a 50 caliber is, and they're not that hard. And even if you're trying to radar, make your ships less radar profile, show up. Sure, just store them below deck and pull them out when you sort of kind of think you need them. But there's still something that you just can't replace. There's nothing yet that properly replaces the 50 cal. Sometimes you upgun to 20 millimeter or 35 millimeter on some infantry fighting vehicles. And of course, for a lot of infantry, doing counterinsurgency warfare, running around, whether it's the deserts, the jungles, the mountains, the 50's too heavy to use. But when you set up a forward operating base somewhere, whether it's an artillery, artillery fire base or just the modern sort of FOB or whatever, mounting a few 50 calibers around that base becomes a very good thing. You just nothing does it better yet. Yeah. So Abda Force, and forgive me, I'm not very good on exact timelines of when. I think Singapore falls before the real Abda Force battles happen. I think I may be wrong on that, but they're relying upon Singapore holding out. They're relying upon all this stuff here. Um, some of these straits here, my understanding, are too narrow. Some of them are to get Abda Force through. I'm not even sure about here, or maybe it was just the Japanese had already. I think here was already occupied by the Japanese. Maybe not. I don't know. And so they get parts of it get trapped. Parts of it does get out. Part of it is destroyed in the main battles when they're confronting. I get the idea of governments politically not wanting to abandon things, but they needed to earlier on abandon the Netherlands, or the Dutch East Indies here, and pull out what they could pull out. Or board up somewhere, but looking at Singapore, that doesn't quite work. But yeah, HMS Jupiter is one of the most modern destroyers we had in commission in 1939, J class. I just looked up the others were 4 destroyers with repulsive, and they were assortment of older E and 2H class. Yeah, I don't know those classes well enough to know what's on them. But yeah, Britain at that time is, and you've got to realize Britain is set up for a war with Germany and Italy at that time, not a war with Japan. And even as that war with Japan is happening, you can't on a dime, turn around and start sending stuff to confront the Japanese, even if you had it available, meaning not doing something else more important at the moment, meaning either doing something less important, whatever that might be. That it just takes too long, and it's a doomed force. Once Singapore falls, and it didn't need to, but once it does, you know, you just pull back into India proper and Australia, and yeah, try to hold here as they sort of do, but don't do too much, and just wait for the Americans to show up. That's about all you can really do. And now with the realities, now this playthrough was very much of an attempt to hold the Philippines, and the Japanese have not attacked up here. They did attack down here, and we did lose a couple of divisions, or at least were shattered and sent back to America. And it's been these little motor torpedo boats that have kept them from coming across here, because no matter how they would have plowed through here, and until I got, there's 3 divisions. Now those might have been enough, along with these other guys, to hold down here somewhere. You can sort of island walk, if you will, if you have control through these islands. There are straits or whatever to get through them. You don't have to do multiple naval invasions, but they just can't come across because of these guys here. So yeah, and the Philippines were holdable by the Americans had they done preparation early enough and got that going, but they obviously didn't. Okay, monumental architecture, which will get us more ICs and cost us more resources, but that's fine. We have plenty of resources, at least at the current state of events. Okay, more leadership, manpower down. We got lots of manpower. So, let's do that first. Assault weapons, these are not the machine gun type, but engineering type. Yeah. Leadership. Tall boy bomb, which should be a one and done. Yes, okay, we can't do that. Grand slam yet. Heavy bomber prototypes need to improve. Okay, well, we can do this, I think. We'll do that. And short barrel HE gun, which is, I think, what is. Yeah. Well. Radar guided bombs. Okay, that will help our nav-C attack. There we go. We'll do that. Now let's take a look over here. Supply problems are keeping us from attacking. Okay. Well, we're going to have to stop this here. I think we can hold. I think we can hold. What we're going to do, though, is I was going to invade up to here with this force. I'm going to try to be clever. I know it's me and I'm not that clever, but we're going to try to be clever. That's probably not. What I'm thinking about doing here is reinforcing the British by a naval invasion. Maybe naval invade up at Haifa and get somewhere where there's supply that we can then. Yeah, okay, that's the path I want you to take. You know, also part of the problem, as I see it, is however successful Abdiforce was likely to be, it still wasn't going to be enough to stop the next force coming, whatever that would have been, and the force, and the next force after that, and the next force after that. And not that Japan would be suicidal, and I'm not even suggesting that. I have a high respect for the quality of. Oh, this is a mountain division. I don't want to turn this into a mountain division. No, because we'll use mountain troops for that. Okay. Good. Pay attention. Here we go. That we'll use this force. Oh, to make, yeah, we'll use this in bigger force. Yes. Rebase. And you guys go up here, just get out of the way. And so, yes, like I say, if all the shots work right and you sink all the Japanese ships without losses and whatnot, yeah. But Japan's going to cause Abdiforce enough damage, even if it is reasonably successful, that the second wave was coming, or whatever you want to call it. And they weren't going to be able to stop that with what they had left. It's a delaying action. It's all it is. Medium tank destroyers is grayed out. Amphibious unit training. And so all they can do is delay. And part of delay is just simply have a force there. No, I think it's down here. Okay. is says, oh, well, there's enough of a force that we have to bring a fleet down to fight it. And we'll keep that going because we're using the Marines. Small navigation. So it's just a delay, not a thing that's going to win. Their winning is just delaying stuff, and I think they do delay in a sense, but it's doomed to die. And like you say, Arno, it would have been better to pull it out. That would have been better to pull it out at some point. Here. Okay, well, expected naval battle hasn't happened. You can go back and stuff. There is not 20. Yeah, East. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Plastic Gang. So that's what I mean. You know, you're saying 20 DD. They are focused on, in 1941 and in late 1941, they're focused on keeping Britain alive. You know, naval forces are keeping Britain alive, convoy protection, and operations in the Mediterranean. In the eastern and western, and sometimes they sort of kind of connect together. So that's where all the operations are, and so there's just not forces spent. And taking away 20 additional destroyers from somewhere is just not going to happen at that point. Well, but Arno, what I'm saying is that simply by having the force there is a delay, meaning they have to plan for destroying the force. And I, you know, partially I'm talking out of my ass in that I don't have all the details in front of me, and I don't remember them. Because I know I've read about the attacks. It's been years though. But I'm looking at this from the planning perspective. What assets in, because it's 42, I believe, that it's happening in, I'm not sure the month, but early 42. What naval assets does Japan have? Where are they and what are they doing? You know, they invade the Malaya Peninsula up in this area and come down the west coast of Malaya towards Singapore. But basically, this force that has landed here is abandoned, basically, meaning there's no supply flowing in. This is all done on the original supply that's brought and delivered. They're also, of course, dealing with the Philippines. Even, you know, depending on the date, the Philippines are, you know, are out of the action, but it takes a while for them to get the Philippines totally out of the action. And then you're also, of course, playing around with other areas in the Pacific. So where are Japan's naval assets, and what else could they be doing? So they have to protect the invasion fleet, they've got to bring in a force to deal with it. So that means those assets can't be anywhere else. So that I take a look as a delay of planning of the attack, not delaying the ships as they're sailing in to land. It's a delay in that, oh shit, there's a an enemy fleet in the area, we have to be able to deal with that. And so we can only invade once we have the forces available. Where when we're looking at, and I know they escorted, but I don't know how well right offhand. But when the Japanese come and land here, it's I think at best a lightly escorted invasion. And this is why they come in here. It's after the Prince of Wales and Repulse are sunk. It's when they feel this part of the world, because they control the, Indochina, they're able to come in here and they land here well away from what they perceive is where the enemy would be able to have air attacks, be able to bring in a naval reaction force in time to deal with it. So they're coming in and landing up here and moving here, as opposed to just landing, outside of the gun range, whatever naval gun ranges they have here, and then pushing straight for Singapore. They land well out of its operational ranges of what and in their comfort zone. So that's what I'm talking about, is the delay. With those more modern, it would have been different. Yeah, and it's a lot of what ifs, and I like what ifs, but it's getting to that point. But what happened to the force was, it's just like you say, it would have been better to withdraw it. Okay, now, yep, let's put all these on board, and let's naval invade up here. We're just going to go to the north, and this is, I want to push down in here for the port, and not Beersheba. Oh, these guys, I thought we. These guys got, yeah, okay, that's why we're not coming, because I didn't want to come right into the middle of a battle. Okay, anti-infantry, anti-tank weapons, yay, and that will allow us to upgrade here and others once we get more slots. Any for supplies? No, supplies I'm doing good with. Fuel. I don't even think there were any more available. The truth is they shouldn't have been. There are no small fleet that would have approached possible ground enemy area. Yeah. Understand it. Yes, absolutely. The Royal Navy did not understand how things were changing with, I think America, now maybe again, it's sort of, my age, and they brought back the 4 battleships under Reagan. But I really think they ought to, and those battleships are still sort of, some of them are sitting around that could be brought back into action. They're actually, they're museum ships, but they're still watching some videos. They're still sort of considered as inactive reserve, and they still have capabilities. Now looking with the idea of not like taking them back into action tomorrow or next month even. No, it's more like, oh, we're going to haul them back in and do, say, 6 months of upgrades before sending them back out as operational battleships again. Or more than 6 months, but still a lot faster than building ships from scratch. But I would build, and 4 is just so you could rotate around and have them always have 1 or 2 to be able to operational. I would build some modern battleships. I would build them with some thought to survivability of a nuclear attack. I would obviously build them like battleships for, missile attacks, and because as a kid, I was watching, from afar, obviously, the Falklands Islands Wars, and the British frigates with aluminum armor catching on fire, or not armor, aluminum hulls and superstructures catching on fire, the structures themselves catching on fire and burning down, thinking that, well, steel would have been better. And I think all current British vessels are now made out of steel and no longer aluminum. I may be wrong about that, but at least, frigates and destroyers and that kind of thing. I'm not talking about light, fast boats or something. I'm talking about ships. So they've gone back to steel from that, and though that's not necessarily armor. And a carrier, just by its nature, you can't really arm it up and have it effective. And cruisers are supposed to be light, fast, and nimble. I would build a few battleships that were, try to make them reasonably quick, but build them armored, build them to be able to take hits, build them, with modern techniques, but build them heavily armored, because I'm not sure, and there's a lot of stuff, but I don't know how easy it is for a missile to intercept a 16-inch gun shell. And even if it does intercept a 16-inch gun shell, I don't know that the 16-inch gun shell is going to notice much, especially if you're shooting solid shot, because missiles are fairly lightweight. And if you're firing a volley of 9 of them at once, full broadsides fired off, you got to intercept 9 of them that are traveling very close to each other. And the signatures are probably going to some degree, and I don't know, maybe the modern sensor technology is better. They are so much better, I don't know, but I think it's going to be hard to individually pick them out. For to have 9 intercept the missiles coming in or whatever. But I don't know that naval gunfire is effectively interceptable. And it can have, with modern day guns, probably a 40-mile plus range. Because you can do, if nothing else, just base bleed ammunition, or you could go into an actual, I don't know if you guys, I'm not going to go into what base bleed ammunition is. If you know, you don't. Look it up. Or you could do actually, some sort of rocket assist for longer range trajectories on it once they get out there. But you got some really good long range artillery. It can be really accurate if you're, how good are missiles going to work without GPS? So let's just take a hypothetical. I know we should be playing. I'm going to say this again here, but some of you guys are interested in this. Let's just take a hypothetical situation. You're deciding to operate naval forces here, and not just submarines in this sort of part of the world. And now I'm not current on all the guidance systems, and even when I sort of kind of was, it was all open source stuff, things I could read in Jane's Defense Weekly or Jane's books, and watch other videos. So I'm sure I wasn't up on all the secret stuff, but had a good idea. And so like the original cruise missiles, the Tomahawks, the original versions of them, were designed to have a two-stage navigation capability. This is before GPS. One, it was inertial navigation, knowing that, hey, we're traveling this far and for this long, and so we should be about here, so we should then turn about now at this angle. This is sort of kind of presuming where it's going. And then it was also to have a look-down photographic type thing to see, does this terrain match the terrain I'm supposed to be flying over? Or does it match some other terrain that I'm not supposed to be, So it had in its computers the idea, because they would, photograph either from satellites or from, U-2 or the SR-71 Blackbird aircraft, photograph, parts of the world, from high altitudes. And so the cruise missile, and so they would have, this kind of stuff in its memory banks to know, oh, well, hey, I thought I was flying along this river, but really I'm flying along this river, or whatever it is, and adjust accordingly until it finds a landmark that it recognizes, and then figures, oh, I'm at that landmark. Okay, well, I need to fly from here to here. So it was all done contained within the missile. It didn't need GPS information. It didn't need radar lock onto the target. It was just going to fly to here and detonate. Whether a chemical weapon, a nuclear weapon, or a conventional weapon, and detonate could be spewing out a bunch of bomblets to, saturate an area to take out like a division. Okay, so you could fire these things, and they didn't need sort of like traditional navigation, shall we say. Well, those are, we can see cruise missiles being shot down, because they're in essence not necessarily Tomahawks, but cruise missiles being shot down, over Ukraine by the Russians that fired in. And of course, the Tomahawks, one of the things was they were slow in that they were subsonic, but fast going, but subsonic generally, or maybe supersonic, but still low, trying to go in below interception missile type technology. Okay, well, get to more modern stuff. I don't know how good missiles, whether launched from an aircraft, launched from, and I'll look at the chat in a minute, but please, railguns, whatever, but we'll get to that. Launched from a ship or a submarine or a ground target is going to do, and I'm talking conventional missiles, if you don't want to actually nuke something. You want to navally operate in here. Well, you can have mobile missile launchers that are either like on trucks. Aircraft launch missiles are another thing, but they're another solution to deal with. Or on ships that or boats or whatever that are hiding and moving along the coast. Well, if you've got various air defense abilities, whether it's a Sea Whiz to, I don't know that you shoot a Sea Whiz at a 16-inch shell as it's coming in, if it's going to notice much. You can have that damn thick armor, and it can come in and take a really, has to really impact on something to then detonate its fuse to then blow it up, especially if you build it right. So, and even if you can, in 40 millimeters, just a bigger, more fragmentatious round, it isn't going to be a bigger, probably impact hit round. And I don't even know, because those are coming in damn fast, how good anybody's radar computer interception system. And yes, you get closer and closer to the target, it's going to get easier and easier to intercept. But conversely, if you fire munitions from hidden places out here, it's rather hard to hide on the surface of the ocean. So you can launch things that you just sort of know the fleet is out here. And it could be a loitering munition that circles around until it finds something. Or it can be a supersonic or a hypersonic missile that's going out and then going out to a pre-programmed area, but looking for a target, and at the last elements of the trajectory get close enough and then, change and go into a target. And it may be just enough to know, oh, there's a ship here, but because of, various countermeasures going off. It may not, be precise. But so if you're launching expensive missiles to try to take down their shore-based missile system. Now, air launch stuff, well, you've already got an aircraft up in the air, so if you have anti-aircraft capability, whether you're shooting it at the air-launched missile or you're shooting it at the aircraft itself, well, that's that solution, whatever it's mounted on. And maybe, mounting it on cruisers and destroyers, and the U.S. is going to frigate class stuff, and I disagree with the idea of it. We are a blue water navy. We're not a coastal navy. And we really only need coastal ships for special operations type things. I really don't think, and we need those. And the big problem is maintaining them at sea for long periods of time. And we may not always have friendly bases or want to move in replenishment ships near to to the action. So we might have a situation that we want to park a fleet out here, not just a tripwire fleet, but park, or maybe park on this side of Taiwan, but park a fleet out here. But we want to park it out there permanently, in the sense that it's showing up tomorrow and it'll be there 5 years. Now, it won't be the same ships continuously there for 5 years, but they'll have a, 2 carriers and list on, all the support groups of it. And it's just going to sit out, this part of the world for the next 5 years. And so if, before one of the carriers leaves, another carrier is going to show up. Before one of the frigates leaves, another frigate's going to show up, or whatever it might be. And I know I said frigates. But maybe it's just a little too close. And yeah, they'll bring in some resupply once in a while. But, replenishment at sea can be done and can be maintained. But the more you have to do it, the harder it is. And so you may want to bring it into port. Maybe politically, you don't want to always bring it into Japan or the Philippines or whatever it is. And yeah, here looking at Japan is probably going to be nice enough to let us resupply whatever, because they're as worried about Taiwan as anybody else is. The Philippines is worried, but they know that they're going to have to blow with the wind to some degree. But if we, say, wanted to sit off Pakistan and India, we can't. I don't know. It's just too far away. The more you have to go back to resupply, the more ships you need. It's the return on frigates, the number of frigates you need to do the same job, the number of destroyers you need, including with the rotation in and out, because you only do war footing for so long without having to send the things truly back and give everybody a break. When you're not doing non-war, non-actually at war, they have to have longer, and you need, maintenance in ports a lot longer. So you'll need more ships, more frigates to do what the destroyers can do. So I'm against the idea of America making frigates or doing frigates. Smaller nations that are just, one, they can't afford more. Two, they're really looking at shorter duration operations. And when they do need to go long range, because I don't know, some Dutch cargo ship or tanker or whatever is taken by some pirates, or some Dutch hostages are taken by some terrorist group, could be a terrorist nation, and somewhere between national pride and or maybe the world situation isn't going to, the Americans aren't going to be the ones rescuing them for whatever reason, that the Dutch need to send a few ships, quietly. Yeah, okay, they can, commandeer, and I'm sure they have, rules and regulations to be able to commandeer certain merchant marine vessels. It's already I know the Royal Navy had them, and they used those predetermined stuff to get merchant vessels for the Falkland Island War. I presume the Dutch have a similar thing. They have a large fleet. The Dutch do, a merchant marine fleet. So they can grab up a few supply ships and whatnot and get a frigate or two somewhere around the world that could support a, hostage rescue mission. And so it's good, but that's a rare thing, and a thing that they don't need to build a navy around. It's more like have a capability. So somebody like the Netherlands or Norway or Denmark, yeah, and Germany, who's very landlocked, yeah, frigates make sense. Or Italy, again, it's not landlocked, but it's it's going to be operating a lot of stuff coastally. But if you're France, if you're Britain, yeah, they're going to do frigates just because they can't afford more, but they're still have possessions out around the world. America just shouldn't be doing it. It's just the wrong budgetary expense. But get back to the battleship. So if you had a battleship out here with this group that can more economically and effectively get in and start bombarding shore positions where they're known or suspected anti-shipping missile locations, ports, whatnot, and you don't quite want to nuke them. A battleship with its, yes, the Yamato had 18-inch guns, but I think 16-inch is probably sufficient. And with a modern base bleed ammunition, stuff coming out from Gerald Bull back in the 80s and the 90s, technology, but is still very, very good today. Put on those kinds of guns, set up in a modern way, but a well-armored way, a way that, yes, with CIWSs and missiles and whatnot, but still take hits, still operate, go in and eliminate a lot of coastal targets. But that battleship would be very good. And sometimes, yes, the U.S. is deciding to go into Iraq, which is mostly very internal, or Afghanistan, which obviously is nowhere near the coast of shooting. But there's still the Lebanon, or hey, situations in Liberia or Sierra Leone or wherever have gone to shit again, but we want to support the American embassy, and maybe we want to support the capital. And we could park a battleship off here and do artillery fire support. Yeah, I know we got aircraft and I know we got everything else, but the expense of doing everything else versus the expense of shooting 16-inch shells way inland is a lot less. So I think building battleships now makes a lot of sense, even in this age of air power. Not trying to have a huge fleet of them. 4 is my minimum, just so that you can, under normal conditions, always have at least one, but mostly try to have two, either operating or operational. When in the sense that there's at least one out there operating with the fleet, another one training up or ready to go, and maybe 2 in port, that are truly, unmanned and, the being being refitted and repaired and whatnot, getting ready to go back out, but that heightened tensions could deploy all 4 at once. But a few more might even be good, because if you build them right, I think now we're no longer in an armor/gun race. Oh, well, we got 16-inch guns and X amount of armor on them. The enemy's just going to build 18-inch guns to penetrate ours, so we're going to have to build, 20-inch guns to, we're no longer in that race. I think we've sort of plateaued up to its effectiveness, because at some point you just decide to shoot a nuclear tipped Tomahawk missile at the fleets, and they just have to get close enough and blow up, and they, blast effect take the fleet out, which would be much different than taking out a city. I think the world reaction, even if America were to say detonate a few nukes at sea somewhere to stop a fleet, is a much different reaction than America detonating a nuke over a city. Well, it still may be politically a difficulty, but it may be better than having Taiwan invaded or something. But if you're wanting to do that, so at some point it just goes to nukes. But short of nukes, I think we could build ships, build them so that they would last easily 50 plus years, and just change out the electronic components, if you will, of the ships, or possibly, some of the munition components, better missiles or better shells that, or maybe, guided shells in the last bit. So I'm a battleship advocate to come back, not to replace carriers, not to replace submarines, but just to give us that one little extra capability that just you don't want to fuck around to find out. What have you been saying in chat while I've been ranting on? I think we all play these war games. Realistic possible what ifs. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's bloody heavy and quite large. Oh, what are we talking about? Bloody large, being equipped with batteries of cruise missiles or rail guns, if they were perfected. Yeah, rail guns. Okay, here's the thing with railguns and warfare. It's energy, people. It's energy. Okay. railgun, and I know perfected. I don't know the current state. So far, the railguns, and somebody may know presumably better. There's some people out here know better than I do. But the railguns are a combination of they require a lot of energy, and they're not very accurate out after a certain distance. That's my understanding. Because to my knowledge, none of the railguns ballistically spin their bullet, their projectile. I know we're using fin stabilized munitions on our tanks and whatnot, but there's still something about spin stabilized projectiles that still has a place. We still use it in our artillery, and there's still a place in tank gun artillery, but with our sub munitions, I don't know. The British still use a spin stabilized 120 millimeter gun. I believe they still use that. So I'm convinced that our current accuracy from our German designed 120 millimeter guns is extremely good. So that isn't a question there. But I'm still not convinced entirely that spin stabilization is out. The other issue is energy. What and how are you going to store energy for your railguns? Now, where you might, so we don't yet have the storage for energy for a railgun that you can put in a soldier's hand and carry it around. I think we could have the technology to have a handheld railgun. We may not. I don't know. But if we could probably put an application, some effort to it, and come up with it. But it's the backpack that he would have to carry, or have a wheeled thing behind him that he tows to move that railgun around to store the energy. Okay, now a ship, on the other hand, you can have that energy, but how much energy? And I don't know, but the energy budget for maintaining a railgun. But you know what really does a good store of energy? Explosive powder. Now we can talk about other high explosives, and some of those, depending on how they're used, might be a better way to do it. But you're talking certain stability. I don't know, but explosive force, whether it's something like plastic explosives. TNT is very unstable, so you wouldn't want to use that. But the explosive powders that are used, it's more that it's not obviously not black powder, and it's some of the more modern powders are. And I know a lot of the stuff that the New Jersey and other ships, they were shooting World War I surplus ammo. I'm not World War I, sorry, World War II surplus ammo. So it was old powder, but you can make modern powders that I presume would work better, because I know we've gotten better ballistic powders for rifles and pistols, so I presume they've gotten better for if they wanted to work out something for the 16-inch guns and the 5-inch guns and other guns on the ship. So it's storing that energy, which I still don't know if we've effectively, and even if you have, and a battleship needs to survive and fight even though it's damaged. That's part of the idea of a battleship. And so either you need to have batteries that store up your energy, or you need to have something that's generating that energy and generating a lot of it. And then how effective, how vulnerable is that system of creating the energy, say like a nuclear power reactor of some sort, fusion or fission? How effective is that going to be at protecting that versus protecting the powder magazines down in the ship from those blowing up and destroying the ship? So I don't know that we're anywhere near the idea that railguns are going to replace powder-launched artillery yet. So purely on that energy budget situation. These railguns are supposedly uninterceptable. The theory is that they travel at such velocity with such kinetic energy, anything fired intercepted will just shatter and impact, and the shell travels along the trajectory. Yeah. But the energy requirements is vast, absolutely. Generating energy is not a problem. Nuclear reactors provide the energy, storing it in a buffer that can be released. Yes, and you need it. Yes, the buffer and the huge is part of it. Well, either you need a very, very strong reactor that's generating enough at any one moment, or like you say, buffer it up to launch it. So, so how big is your reactor? How much energy does it put out? That. Now let me put it this way. I'm trying to be very, very careful with what I say to both be accurate and not say too much. And not that I really know. I understand that some power, some national power, shall we say, on Earth has things in orbit, often called satellites, that has just lasers, or if not lasers, some other energy weapons, has up in orbit something that will project an energy like a laser, an energy beam down to the surface that would effectively knock out a ship. And I don't know that the information that I have is correct. And you can guess what nation is most likely to have this in orbit. And I don't know. But I'm not going to go beyond how I know what I think I know. And no, I don't have any classified information, but that there's orbital capabilities to use that. And also the other thing that I understand that also exists, again, I don't have any direct personal knowledge or anything like that, are the rods from God that, again, this same nation supposedly has. That they have, again, in orbit, something that will project a rod, sort of like the sabot, coming out, the penetrator round from a 120 millimeter tank gun, but larger, a rod made of something very strong, that the velocity it's going to have at the impact it's going to have when it gets to the surface is going to be tremendous. And often they're called rods from God. And these things, I don't know how accurate they're going to be, meaning I don't think they'd shoot down like an incoming missile. And I don't know that they would shoot down a very small, an aircraft or like a hydrofoil motor torpedo boat. But might be accurate enough to, say, take out a ship from orbit. One or two of these hitting most ships would end the ship. So there is the whole theory that maybe some of these Navy vessels, and my advocacy for battleships, is really just outdated thinking, in that if they wanted to expose the general existence of said technology, they could use it. And none of the technology was really going to be terribly effective in something like an Afghanistan or Iraqi type thing, and it's more effective on either strategic or naval operations. So yeah, maybe all of this stuff is, yeah, fusion reactors. The Iran just tested its first laser weapon and it passed with flying colors, although envisioned for use against fast moving but small. Yes. Okay. See, also with the naval stuff, or with the beam stuff, going after a like a guided missile of some sort, those are light, flimsy things, relatively speaking, compared to a shell, whether it's like a 5 inch, a 6 inch, a 8 inch, 10 inch, 16 inch shell. They're light and flimsy compared to those things. And so a lot of the idea for a anti-missile that's like mounted on a ship isn't the idea that there's an incoming, the radar spots an incoming missile, it's coming in, so we launch a missile at it. It's not the idea that it's going to hit that missile. I don't even think the plan is to hit the missile. The idea is to get super close to the missile and blow up, and the fragments from the explosion are going to destroy the missile. But those fragments, as they come in even if because it's coming, depends on the missile. We can talk about some hypersonic, but hypersonic does not work, to my knowledge, down at sea level. It works up in the stratosphere, up very high in the atmosphere. Very high, not down low. They have to slow down by the time they get low. Again, because they're fragile and air friction and whatnot, heat will destroy them. So it's sort of supersonic, not hypersonic, low down. So even if you have a system that technologically could intercept the incoming 16-inch shell, it's not necessarily designed to actually hit that shell. It's just to come super close to it. It might hit it, but it might not. But super close to it and then detonate. But that detonate, one, the shock wave isn't enough to significantly take it off of its course, and two, the fragmentation from that detonation isn't enough to affect the 16-inch shell. But it will affect a Tomahawk missile or something that's much more fragile. And you don't have to totally destroy the Tomahawk missile. You just have to destroy enough of its flight capabilities to have it, fall out of the sky. And so, yeah, this is sort of some of the stuff and so a laser hitting an incoming missile versus a beam weapon that needs to take out a ship are magnitudes different. Small objects, swarm drones. Yes. Check out, it's called Dragonfire, being developed by DARPA, British version. Yeah, the British version, DARPA, right. So yeah, they do have the swarm technologies. Now, to my mind, the way you deal with swarms is just the Gatling gun technologies and targeting them. But if you have too many coming in once, it overwhelms them. But it's expense. It just comes down to expense. And will governments pay it? Okay, well, it's over past time to end this episode. I think I already have saved. Yeah, but we're going to save this here. And I think we're going to end this. And my voice is getting a little rough, so I think we're going to end about half an hour early here today. Guys, Plastic Gangster, you've been great, and so have you, Arno, welcoming everybody in chat. Thank you. And everybody else hanging around. There's been, let's see, there's 13 or so of you on the different services. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Should be talking about this because those successful trials were initially conducted last week. Yeah. Well, I haven't been following those trials that you pointed out, Plastic Gangster. But as you can tell, I don't follow everything all the time, and I sort of go in phases of going down rabbit holes, as it were, and looking at stuff. So yeah, and the different technologies. So and my understanding, some of the power budget for the stuff in orbit is actually a nuclear explosion of some sort. So that's how they're able to generate the beam weapon. Now it's sort of like a fire once and it's done kind of thing, but it may be able to generate multiple rounds. But I don't know. I truly don't know. But I've heard things that from people that might know. I don't know what they're saying is correct or not, but yeah. Even 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone. We'll and I say we because I hope Arno will be back tomorrow. We'll be playing some War Thunder. They've upgraded their servers situation, so it should not have problems. So we'll probably be playing some War Thunder tomorrow, hanging out, and of course, we can talk about other things and then War Thunder too if you guys want to, but also just talking and hanging out with War Thunder. So hopefully see you then. I subscribe to Defense Daily and Miltech. I read that article last week. Oh, very good. Very good. Great. Good to hear, Arno. Good to hear. Oh, Arno, we're going to be starting 9 o'clock my time, sort of the hour later than this starts. But if you could show up a few minutes early, I want to talk to you before we go live. Arno, nothing wrong. I just want to talk to you before we go live. So if we could do that, if you can try to get there early, if you can. If no problem, we can talk after we go live. Either way. I mean after the live thing is over. But just either before or after, I do want to chat with you and remind me if not. Yeah, good to hear, Plastic Gangster. So see y'all tomorrow, I hope. Bye. No, it's a good thing, Arno.